Hello everyone and welcome to the 2023 GPVWC British Grand Prix. This is round 9 of the series this year and it's getting very, very close. Last time out in the championship, Tom Stevens just edged ahead. There's 5 points in it now and I'm looking forward to seeing what Jake Dennehan can do and whether he can keep his podium streak alive. Hello everyone, welcome along. This is always an exciting one. And there's been a bit of a debate in the broadcasting room before the start of this one. I was saying how the British Grand Prix is always my favourite, and I'm not biased whatsoever because it is just generally the best Grand Prix in both the real world and sim racing, and to drive and to spectate and everything in between. But my colleague here, Ryan Elliott, seems to disagree with me. Ryan, defend yourself, shall you?
I'm going to start off as well by saying it's not just colleague, it's colleague. Because our broadcast director, Szymon Frelik, also agrees.
Well, that's... okay.
It's a terrible track, so it's currently 2/3 saying it's a bad Grand Prix, 1/3 saying it is. And I'm very, probably offending most of the Brits that are watching, and I'm not saying that I'm not a patriarch and I don't love coming to Silverstone, but it's not great in my opinion. But you know, it made for a nice Grand Prix this year in real life. But I mean, it's a little bit different in sim racing. Sim racing, pretty much any tracks kind of good for overtaking. It doesn't quite work the same, but yeah, gonna be an interesting one. We've got, you know, it's the halfway point of the season now. People are sort of in a bit of a rhythm, kind of a bit settled down as well, just trying to bag points. Shouldn't be too many risks taking place, but yeah, I mean, we say that, you never know what the drivers will get up to.
Fair enough, fair enough. Well, after we've got that argument out of the way to start this this live stream,
Which we won.
Sorry?
Which we won.
Okay, well, not if the chat back me up. Okay, each individual chat member gets one vote in the system, because we are in fact a democracy here. So you haven't won yet, but anyway. Yes, hello as well to Szymon, Frelik, and thank you for providing the cameras today. Of course, Szymon, the broadcast director, who's actually got the live stream up. We don't do all of it, me and Ryan. We just talk about funny little cars going around a pretend racing circuit. Very good pretend racing circuit. And then, of course, it's Szymon behind the scenes, actually putting it in front of your eyes. But anyway, we're currently in a qualifying session. We've got 13 minutes out of 15 to go, and we're just waiting for the first few banker laps to be set. We're riding on board with Jake Dennehan in the Edge Esports car. Jake is on a real streak at the minute, because even though the stats will say that he's only on a streak of one podium, having finished second at Canada last time out, that's only because he missed the Spanish Grand Prix. In total, he's actually been on the podium at every single race so far this season, and is yet to be properly defeated in a race. Of course, he has come third at Australia, but aside from that, he's been second or first at every other race. Tom Stevens leads the championship, but only by 5 points. He has 3 victories to his name now, and 2 on the bounce. So today I'm expecting to see it much, much closer. Jake is currently top of the times now with a 128.270, followed by Luke Maguire now, who comes across the line less than half a tenth of a second behind. Lovely purple stripes there on the THR car for today. THR have a history of raising awareness for things like breast cancer awareness and things like that. I would love to know if that's why they've got the purpley pink stripe on the back today, or whether it's simply because it is their home Grand Prix. But anyway, we will catch up on that in due time. Cancer Research UK, I'm being told. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, it's something that, you know, I like to do with my team as well. RSR, in October we go pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So really good to see people using the platforms across all teams, all divisions to raise awareness for good causes. But looking back at a bit of history, we've got quite a few previous British Grand Prix winners with us today. Some of them being, is Rual racing this time around? Yes, he is. So we've got Rual, Flo Guy has won here, Pushka's won here before, Fidux won here before as well. That's 4 previous winners of the British Grand Prix that are racing with us today.
Fantastic, and considering how the season's gone so far today, it's pretty likely that we're going to see a brand new British Grand Prix winner here today as well. With no disrespect, of course, to the drivers who have won here before, Stefan Rual is going to put up a good fight, and definitely do not count him out for a victory. If you do look back at the statistics, it looks as if the lap record here was set way back in the Prix Abbey variant of the circuit. Lap record actually appears to stand at a 118.555. That was Philip Williams back in that was back in 2004. Whoever set the first lap there, Philip Williams won on that day. And indeed, it was him who set the fastest lap. Of course, that's not a true lap record, because since or it is a true lap record, but that's not the lap record, because since 2011 they've been using an updated version of the circuit, and the record on this version of the circuit is a 1:27.205, set in 2014, interestingly, so they haven't been faster than that, and that was set by Alex Cooper racing a Midnight Potentia way back in the day. So there's your historic stats there for the history nerds amongst us.
I always like doing a bit of history, especially at a track like this. It's got so much of it. I've been racing here now over 20 years. Did miss 1 year, 2001, but other than that, it looks like we've raced here every year since, which kind of makes sense because it's been around for so long. So. But yeah, anyway, we're in the depth of quali now. 9 minutes to go. People have got the banker laps in, and it's looking very familiar at the top. With Jake Dennehan leading the way from Tom Stevens, Luke Maguire. Good showing for both the THR cars there. A name that I've got, well, a couple of names I've got to shout out. 6th and 7th, Chris Shepherd, Matthias Muss having a good run as we see Watt come across the line as well. Jumps into P4, just pips his teammate. But yeah, really good to see Chris Shepherd up there. Chris has had the pace, we know what he's like. We've seen him race in other Formula over the years, but hasn't quite got it together, probably the bit of lack of testing. So with it being his home race, I think he was confident and got some passion to do some more laps and having a good run so far, but there's still 8.5 minutes to change that.
Indeed. So Jake Dennehan still at the top of the times, less than half a tenth of a second ahead of both THR drivers, Tom Stevens and Luke Maguire, who are both right up there. Then it's the 2 RSRs, so you'll be happy with that, Ryan. And actually Tom Stevens has just set the fastest first sector of anyone so far, so might be about to improve. Jake Dennehan is on an improvement as well. It's about the same as his previous lap though, but then again at this circuit all you need is a couple of thousandths of a second to put yourself out of reach from time to time. Adam Maguire, Chris Shepherd, Ruben Machete, Robin Panzer and Matthias Moose, the rest of the top 10 so far. Here is Jake Dennehan's lap, and it is an improvement with a fastest third sector as well, or at least a personal best third sector. That puts him only a few thousandths of a second ahead of where he was on a 1:28.239. And I have a feeling that Luke Maguire's lap that we're about to see set is going to go faster than that, and Tom Stevens will probably blow them both out of the water. Here comes Luke. Oh, it's not quite quicker. He's 18 thousandths of a second off. Now here comes Tom Stevens, and this lap is looking quicker for sure. Out of the final corner he goes, and surely to the top of the times, across the line, and he does, and it's by a tenth of a second this time, so puts himself a little further out of reach. Tom Stevens first, then Jake Dennehan and Luke Maguire. Adam Maguire now goes 4th place, so we've got both Maguires on the second row of the grid. Plenty more lap times to come, and the track is about to get a little quieter as everyone sets up for their final stint on the track. There's Flo Guy coming back into the pits, getting ready for his final stint, the previous British Grand Prix winner. And Matthew Williams, that's a name I haven't seen in a while, but this will be a return for him. He was famously the driver who held off Yannick Bock at the end of the 2021 season in order for Yannick Bock to become champion on the final lap of the race. Williams has won Grand Prix in the past, I believe, so I'm going to look up his results quickly, but I think this might be his first race since 2021.
He definitely won in Super Lights. I'd have to double check if he's won in the Super League. Yeah, he was champion in Super Lights like a year or two ago. We've got a man on screen as well, Alec Liu, who's stepping in at Epic. Looks like just the one Epic for now. We might have another driver joining us at some point, not sure. I think Jeff Wanier said that he couldn't make this round, and obviously they've been struggling trying to find a semi-permanent replacement for Fabio Sixter, who's missing. That's a real hit for the team as well. Obviously that would have made it another British Grand Prix winner as well that would have been racing, but still unavailable at this point in the season.
So this is just Alex Lahou's second Grand Prix in Super League. His first was at Azerbaijan this year, where he unfortunately failed to finish. So he's looking for his very first finish in Super League. But he's also done things like Super Lights, where his best result is a 7th place finish. And he's actually got wins in the Academy Series, Formula Sprint 2 and Formula Sprint 1. We know that Alex has the pace, and now we just have to see it translated into results in Super League. Matthew Williams, on the other hand, who has raced here before in Super League, his best result is 3rd place, which was in that race that I was talking about at Brazil 2021, where he was holding off Yannick Bock for the podium on the final lap of the race. And he did actually do 4 races for Mea Downard Racing Team last year, which I forgot, although I shouldn't have forgotten them because he actually did very well at Australia, finishing 7th place in what was not a particularly competitive team or car that year. So Matthew Williams making a return for the first time in over a year. And there's Matthias Moos putting his car up to 9th place.
I was about to say, wow, look how close them Red Archers are. There was 2,000s between them, but Chris Shepard's gone and improved his lap time again. That's really good effort from him. I mean, look at some of these teams are really close together. RSR together, the Red Archers are together, the THR as well, almost together. They're just split by Dennehan. But one thing that's, you know, if I was Dennehan, I'd be a little bit nervous with my teammate down in P13. Obviously, you want somebody close to you to help out strategically and sort of, I don't want to say rear gunner, it seems like a bit of an insult, but somebody to have your back up there. You know, it's the current problem that Red Bull are having with Verstappen and Perez, well, Verstappen and anybody. And it feels like a similar thing at the moment, Edge, but there's still 3 minutes to go. We're all not out on track at the moment. We've seen it's clearly not an improvement, but yeah, we're all not out on track either, so he hasn't got long to get his way up there to sort of help out his teammate.
Tom Stevens has a purple sector in the first sector. That means that he's the fastest of anyone. Luke Maguire is very close to that pace, actually. Less than half a tenth of a second off in the first sector and improving in the second as well. But he comes into the pits now to set up for his final run. So clearly didn't feel that final sector was worth completing. Here comes Tom Stevens now, and it is a purple first and second sector, so that's true purple in both sectors. And surely he will finish this lap because he may not get another opportunity as good as this. He does stay out, so Tom Stevens might be sacrificing putting together a lap at the very end of the session in order to put together the quickest lap that we've seen so far. Lalu goes 5th now. How quick is this from Tom Stevens? And he weaves, he's clearly excited about it. And he never mind, he got it wrong. So I noticed he was a little sideways through club. I didn't think it would cost him the lap, but apparently it has done, because it was a 1:28.1 in the end, which is just over what he has done. Could that be his chance of pole gone? Obviously it's not, because he's still in the lead in qualifying. Although if people can improve, it might be, because he might not get another chance for a lap now. Here comes Matthew Williams for Rude Auto Concepts, up towards the end of this particular lap and into the Vale Club chicane. I was just looking at the penalties and things applied at the last race, just to check that there were no grid penalties, and there are no grid penalties. So where you see people qualifying here is where they will start, providing they don't have outstanding penalties from previous races. Matthew Williams is 13th. Doc Shukes goes on to a brand new lap now. And we wait to see who is going to be putting together laps at the very end of the session.
Yeah, just noticed as well that David Yunt's joined as well for the other Epic car, so we are going to see 2 Epic racing cars. I'm assuming he was doing the test session, which meant that he was a late joiner. Just look up and down the grid again. Lalu currently out qualifying Granquist, which is something we haven't quite seen throughout the start of this season. Lalu obviously solid driver, he just hasn't quite put it together as much as I think as he'd want to. Granquist has really been leader in that team so far, with a podium last time out as well after a good strategy. So nice to see Lalu having a good go inside the top 5 with 35 seconds to go in this qualifying session. Let's see what Mascula can do down in sector 1. Guess we've Maggots and Beckett's. gets on the back straight. Let's see if he improves in this sector. No, down again, so it'll take a miracle in that final sector unless he's got life in the tyres for another lap.
By the way, just to confirm, Tom Stevens is in the pits, so even if he'd had the fuel and tyres to go for another lap, he now is a proper sitting duck, and he just has to see what these other drivers around him can do. Jake Dennehan has just started his final lap of the session. There he is, out through the loop with a little twitch at the back. Luke Maguire is purple in the first sector. Maguire could be a real challenge for pole here. As he goes out through Luffield, he's got to put himself ahead of Jake Dennehan to put himself in a prime position for this race. Down the national pit straight he goes, that's still used as a start-finish straight for plenty of different championships, such as BTCC and a lot of club racing championships too. Cobb's corner is extremely fast. You saw him keep it in 7th gear through there, and he's doing the same through the first few parts of Maggots and Beckett's. Down to 5th. Wow, I'd have thought that was taken at 4th up and Roost there, but only down to 5th for Chapel, and then out towards the Stowe corner. Right at the top of the hill, he's very twitchy through there. That's going to cost him some time. It looked as if he was going to understeer wide, and I'm not sure whether his lap is still going to be competitive after that. He was only just up. Jake Dennehan will be following him across the line, so we'll see how they go. Luke Maguire weaves. I think that means he's ruined it. Yeah, he was down on his time. He was weaving because he knew he wasn't going to be quicker. And Dennehan's bailed out. So Dennehan ends the session, and it looks as if pole position is going the way of Tom Stevens. Here's Daniel Stepkowski. Walker moves up to 4th. Stepkowski, 2nd. Oh, just a 10th and a half. Well, under a 10th and a half off the pole time. There's Machete now going up to 8th, but a string of good laps from RSR towards the end of the session there. And Ryan, you're going to have one of your cars on the front row of the grid.
Fantastic effort. I didn't expect that. Stepkowski was green in sector 1 and 2. You didn't set a single purple, but it doesn't matter, does it? You know, you could be 1,000th away and it'd still be a good lap, so I'm well chuffed with that. But the one thing I'm not well chuffed with is Stevens got a good 10th, nearly 10th and a half on everybody.
So there is the order. Tom Stevens, our championship leader, will start from pole position. Daniel Stepkowski with a late charge to 2nd. Then it's Jake Dennehan in 3rd, Luke Maguire 4th, Tomasz Walk 5th, then Adam Maguire, Jakob Pekalalu, Ruben Machete, Mateus Moose, and Jan Grankvist. As always, we'll read out the rest of the order as we go to the formation lap later on, but there you see the rest of the order on your screen, including former winners here like Stefan Roll, who won it last year but is down in 14th place this time out, I'm afraid to say. And David Fidok, who won it a good few years ago, possibly 2014 he won it? I might well double check that, but yeah, David Fidok, a former winner of this Grand Prix, and it was 2014 that he won this race. There's Florian Guy you can see here, who's also a former winner. He won it back in 2017. And Philip Pushke, who you actually see twice for some strange reason, probably because someone's left the server and will rejoin, won it back in 2015. 26 drivers joined in the end, so it is a full house here at Silverstone, and that is exactly what we like to see, Ryan.
Yeah, I mean, full grids are always great, aren't they? More entertainment, more people to follow. I think that was quite a good quali session. There was a bit on edge at the end there. I thought Stevens sat in the pits. I thought he was a bit of a sitting duck, but nobody can touch him. I think that says a lot. A 10th and a half, you know, you saw the top 21 was split by a second there. So a 10th and a half is huge between 1st and 2nd place. But if Stevens wasn't there, there would have been like 300s between like the top 5, I think. Top 5 or 6, that would have been ridiculous. So really, really, really good, and some names up there that it's good to see some people returning back to form as well. Notably, Red Archer boys have had the worst start to this season that they could have ever dreamt of. With circumstances out of their hands, but nice to see them doing okay. Just gotta push on. Not 92 laps, sorry, 52 laps around this track. Strategy is going to be going to be tight, I think, between a 1 and a 2 stop, is my prediction. We saw at Canada, obviously there was the intermediate that added to it, but that extra stop didn't affect people as much as we might have expected. Dennehan coming back quite a lot in the end, considering he started on them intermediate tyres. So I think 2 stops very possible for a lot of guys, especially top 10 who are going to have to start on the soft tyre that they qualified on. Some people might try soft hard, but I think everybody else will go medium hard or hard medium, whatever way around. The fancy, from 11th backwards, some people will go something ridiculous, you know, like David Feidock, he always goes for something ridiculous and pulls it off. So yeah. And that's the beauty of Superleague.
Lalu always stays out ridiculously long on old tyres, doesn't he?
He might be forced though, starting a bit further up, he might be forced to...
That's true, but he'll still hold those softs out for as long as he possibly can.
Oh yeah. Yeah, of course. You got to play the long game in this.
Whoa! And we're seeing nearly a 3-car accident happening out on track right now in the warm-up session. Luckily, it is a warm-up session, so that's not going to affect the order of the race or anything like that. But yeah, it looks like a driver got some wheels on the grass there and just lost control into the chicane. Like I said, though, just a bit of fun in the warm-up session. And they will continue on. About 8 minutes to go now till we see the checkered flag on the warm-up session. So in the meantime, let's talk a little bit about the development race that's going on. So I've noticed recently that Super Venturi have been really keeping up, and of course Grankvist and Lalu are very, very strong characters and strong drivers, but I've never seen them strung together so many strong results in a row before. I'm wondering if the specific developments they've put into that car are coming into play here.
I mean, it's very similar to what a lot of people have done. Like, the strategy's been a bit of a weird one this year. It hasn't been... There's been like a couple of groups who've gone in different ways, and to be honest, I've kind of lost track of it so far in the season. But yeah, I mean, it could be. I'm just looking at it now. Like they're one of the only teams to select Super Venturi. They're not one of the only, but you know, they got one of the most amount of body drag. Same with diffuser downforce. They're one of the top. And they've got a good mix of rear wing downforce as well as component mass. Whereas, you know, if we look at Edge, they've done everything same but selected for front wing instead of going component mass. That's something that you can see within Red Archer have done it, THR, Epic, SV, Nocturne. A lot of them got for component mass as well, actually, but we haven't opted to. We've gone for a slightly different strategy at RSR.
Indeed. I mean, I brought this up before, Ryan, but you're still the only team to have opted into transmission torque. Do you think that's going to help you at Silverstone particularly, or is that just kind of a general thing?
The aim is that it'll help everywhere. That's what we'd like, and that's what the guys chose. But we're a little bit behind this round on upgrades. It's some factor that we missed one of the test sessions, which hasn't helped us at all. Because even though we're a year 3 team, our R&D points are still a bit scarce. So yeah, transmission will come into play a bit more at some of the tracks, but I think I can't even remember what we selected for our next upgrade actually. I can't remember off the top of my head, but you'll see. Everyone's got their own strategy. Some people want to perform at different tracks, some people choose certain upgrades for the style of tracks that they're going to be racing at. So like, especially when we head to the likes of, you know, Monza, Spa, these big, long, big straight tracks, we're going to see some slightly different upgrades, I imagine. Everyone's already gone for body drag though, so that one's covered off, but maybe more on the engine development side, you might see some more power upgrades coming in.
Indeed, so everyone's opted into to body drag. The same goes for pit tire change. Everybody's put points into that, and some various other things as well have been very popular. At least drag body, I think everyone's put points into. The only team not to have put points so far into rear wing downforce is Mood, although Mood are unfortunately a little way down in terms of the development points. They are the least spec'd up car on the grid as it stands, and by quite a way as well, with Pescara also seeming to lag behind a little bit. And looking at the sheet that I've got, the most spec'd into car in terms of the points actually put into the development race is Epic Racing Team, and they are one of the only teams to have gone for both competition weight mass as well, or comp weight mass. So I suppose that means composite. Oh, component. Oh, I thought that meant like composite or something. As well as putting a lot of development into diffuser downforce and things like that. So a few different routes that people are taking at this point in the season. But whatever the case, I'm sure the cars are all going to have their different strengths and weaknesses here at Silverstone.
It's really nice to see as well, because the last 2 seasons have been quite, I don't want to say boring in terms of the development race. Like, there was some certain really obvious upgrades that everybody chose and just went down what felt like the same path. And instead of, you know, people choosing different paths and having to develop different setups around it to make it faster, it ended up just feeling like it was a battle to who had the best staff to upgrade by like a couple of points more than the other person. Whereas I feel like we got a good mix, and that comes from, you know, personal feel. Like I said earlier, it comes from what tracks you've got coming up next. You might like the way that your dates fall, you might end up taking an upgrade, you know, like a round earlier, because you wouldn't have that upgrade. Even if it won't affect that much at this track, it might impact at a track in 2 weeks' time, and the way the timings work out, it might be worth taking it earlier. There's loads that goes into it, honestly, and I know myself, and I assume every other team does it. We have a solid plan from the moment the mod's official of what our upgrades are going to look like, dates, the duration we want to upgrade for, stuff like that. So it's really interesting, and it's the beauty of GPVWC Super League. You know, there's nothing like it really. Completely unique, and I love it. It makes the manager a bit more involved instead of somebody who just finds a couple of drivers and gets a livery done.
I reckon it's because the car mod is brand new for this year, so people are interpreting it slightly differently, and it hasn't been kind of as refined just yet.
And I think as well, I know it sounds, I don't mean this to sound bad, but people are quite struggling with the car as well. So we've seen some dominant people so far. Like normally we wouldn't have seen this level of dominance from like the likes of Danahan and Stevens, sorry. In previous seasons we would have had like a million winners by now, but some people are struggling with this car, and that means that it's open to interpretation a bit more. Some people might be pushing for just upgrades that are going to give them more feeling instead of outright pace, if you know what I mean. And again, that plays into how you like to set up the car as well. So if one upgrade means that you have to set up a car in a certain way, but that's how you like the car set up, then there's so much that goes into it, and the guys spend weeks testing different upgrade packages and combinations to see which ones they like the most. And again, it's up to people to see what they like, and we've gone, like we were saying earlier, that transmission upgrade, that's what my drivers liked, and that's the route we've gone, and that's different from the team that we work with as well, the Red Archer. They've gone a different path to us, which is interesting as well, because then, you know, you've got different setups as well in 2 different cars, so you can't even really share setup too much.
Indeed. So we now have a checkered flag on this session. So quickly, let me run through the drivers we should be looking out for. as you see the circuit once again on your screen. So, like I said, Tom Stevens leads the championship by 5 points from Jake Dennehan. And like you said before, they have pretty much dominated the championship between them so far, because then there's a 71-point gap back to Jan Grankvist, who's been on the podium 3 times in a row now, but no victories as of yet. Luke Maguire is 4th place in the championship, having won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And then Jakub Lalu is 5th, having finished and scored points in every race so far. Adam Maguire is 6th in the championship, having won in Australia. Then it's Tomasz Voch, Daniel Stepkowski, Robin Panzer, and David Fidok, who has, of course, won here before. In terms of the team's championship, THR is the one to look out for so far. They are on 226 points out in front, and they've won 4 of the 8 Grand Prix so far. Edge Esports have 3 wins to their name, all from Jake Dennehan, and they're 2nd in the championship. Then it's Super Venturi, powered by RSR, and Nocturne, the top 5 teams in those standings. No grid penalties or anything today, so nothing to update you on that front. And and apparently it's just started to rain as well. I was going to touch on the weather, but you can never quite be sure as far as Silverstone's concerned. But yeah, I can see that confirmed on RaceView now. The water is starting to tumble.
Well, there's a reason that Silverstone has a nickname of Silly Stone.
Indeed.
Because the weather is pretty silly. You could have 25 degrees sunshine, and then you could close your eyes, open them again, and it'd be hailstoning. It's got its own little. I mean, it's like this. I say this like almost every track in the UK. They just seem to have their own little microclimates. It's crazy. Like all of that land, and all the rain just seems to hit these little. Well, I say little, big developments, especially in the case of Silverstone. But now people are going to be panicking a little bit. I think. I think if it's only just started at the end of warm-ups, nobody will take an Inter to start with. But you know, people might risk from 11th backwards, might risk starting on a soft if they're anticipating that it's going to get wet in the first sort of 10-15 laps.
Indeed. This might also create a dynamic where teams and drivers have set their cars up slightly differently to each other depending on what they thought the weather's going to do. So of course qualifying may have been done on a dry setup, but you can't change the setup between qualifying and the race. And so the cars might be handling totally differently if the race does start in wet conditions. Looks like they're still going to go out there on slicks, which is the best choice right now, since the weather hasn't really been going on for too long. But how long will that actually start, and will anyone gamble? It's looking a bit dismal out there, but I don't have a good enough view to determine exactly how heavy the rain is. The only way we'll really be able to tell is when we can see the drivers heading round and we see how much spray comes up from behind the car and things like that. There's still an ambient temperature of about 21 Celsius, so it's not cold out there, and the rain is going to struggle to settle too much. And yet it does look as if there's a sort of misty precipitation in the air. There you see it. So Tom Stevens leads away, and let's see the starting order, shall we? As it comes up on our screen now. So Tom Stevens will lead, followed by Daniel Stepkowski, Jake Dennehan, and Luke Maguire, both THR cars on the front slate of the starting order graphic. Then we have Tomasz Voch in 5th position, Adam Maguire, Jakub Lalu, and Ruben Machedi for Nocturne, with Machedi and Maguire actually picking up a penalty each after the last race, although not a grid penalty. Matthias Moose P9, and then Jan Grankvist, Chris Shepherd, and Robin Panzer. So those are the top 12, both Red Archer cars on that screen. Matthew Williams 13th, Stefan Rohr 14th, Mark Schluter, and then Pascal Pollens there. Mark Schluter, who has the 3rd best finishing position on average this season, so look for him to come through. Janis Vorburn 17th, then Eros Masculi, David Fidok, and Alex Lahou. And then Philip Pushke, Fabian Schiertzig, Giuseppe Lino, and Florian Gaia. Just 2 cars to go on the grid, David Yunt and Zolk Shukes. Now, when the starting orders finish scrolling past the screen, I would love to see the tyre graphic, see who's starting on what, because it's notoriously hard to determine from the race view graphic that it gives me. But it looks as if, okay, so Yunt is still in the pits. I wonder if he's waiting to see whether it has, or whether the rain keeps going or not. Apparently the rain has stopped, but maybe he was just waiting to see whether it would or not. Robin Panzer is the top driver on mediums. Matthew Williams is the top driver on hards. And the question hangs in the air like a mist. Will there be more rain in this race? They're heading to a slightly greasy starting grid here. And you can see them lining up 2 by 2. There is the number 36 car of David Feidock lining up towards the back. And here's David Yunt heading out of the pits. Ryan, this is going to be an exciting one.
Yeah, and secretly I'm hoping for a little bit of rain, but let's wait for the lights to come on and let's get racing.
So we've got 5 red lights at the front of the field. When they come on, the reds will raise. And when they extinguish, we'll be underway for 52 laps of racing here at the British Grand Prix. And it's go! And look at Tom Stevens already in front. And Jake Dennehan coming through as well. So Dennehan will take second away from Stepkowski, who's there with his teammate Wok, making up some places. Grass being kicked up in the background as everyone makes it through Abbey, okay? But here is the first main braking zone. And there's a little slide from one of the Super Venturis who gets knocked sideways and continues on their way. Around the outside now, they're going 3 wide further back. It looks like that car may have been Jan Grangfist, who's down to 12th. Wide goes one of the Pescaras, and Dennehan took a look at our race leader here. It's Stevens, followed by Dennehan, Stepkowski, and then the 2 Maguires. So Wok has lost a couple of places since we last saw them. And another spin mid-pack. Feidock went sideways, and it looks as if Lino and someone else, potentially Alex Lahoe, went for a bit more of a significant spin there. So Lahoe drops to the back of the grid, and it results Shukes, who was also involved in that one. A little bit of contact, but still everyone with their wings attached. And now we head up to Maggots and Beckett and Chapel for the very first time, Ryan.
Yeah, a little bit scrappy to start with, a bit more scrappy than I was expecting, but that first sector especially is so tight. The back-to-back hairpins, it's a tricky start, tricky first sector around this track, and seen quite a bit of movement. Shepard's had a good start. Rual, biggest loser, actually not who is, but the second biggest loser then is Rual, down 5 places. Not great, not looking like good prediction from Chad in the chat saying Lahoo up to P1 from P20 100%. It's not looking that way now, but there's still time.
Still time indeed. We've got a long way to go in this race, as cliche as that sounds. Here's Matthew Williams running in 12th position. I'm watching the weather too. That first lap was completely dry. The ambient temperature has dropped to 20 degrees Celsius, but still relatively warm. Around the loop and down the Wellington Straight we go. Here comes Ruben Machedi now. This is for 6th position on Tomasz Wok. Has to back out of that a little, but Wok leaves the door wide open. He'll have the outside line for Luffield rather, and has to duck back underneath him. Bright yellow rear wing and front wing on the Nocturne cars today as well. Not entirely sure what that is supposed to be. Something protection is, did you say cat? Oh, cats, very nice. I approve of that as an animal lover myself. And so apparently they're supporting cats protection here. Ruben Machedi dropping back into 7th position, but he's got plenty more time left in his 9 lives to pass Tomasz Wok for 6th.
That was a good one, to be fair, Caitlin. Yeah, he's putting quite a bit of pressure on Wok there. They're starting to lose the back already at that pack in front of them. Let's see what happens with Lahoo here. Somebody on his outside clips the back of that Stax car and goes round. That's unfortunate, but a bit of crowd in lap 1, kind of to be expected from board Masculi. I think it was Masculi that went fully off the grass here towards the wall.
Yeah.
Here. Yeah, just runs out of space. Comes back on. He was lucky that he didn't make serious contact with somebody with that rejoin.
I think he realised quite early on in the corner that he wasn't going to be given any room on the outside. So rather than risking it and trying to fight for his position, he decided he was going to take through the grass and not end up being spun around. So to be honest, probably quite wise. He's ended up keeping his position quite well, still in 14th, and Grankvist gets 10th. So Grankvist back up a couple of places after he got caught up a little in the opening lap skirmish. Williams now side by side with Masculi, who's sent wide around Luffield. Not a great place to be, although there is quite a lot of grip out there, as we saw in the real-life British Grand Prix this year. And Williams fends off Masculi into Copse. That might give him a slightly worse run up towards Maggots and Beckett, but not really an overtaking opportunity. You always lose out if you sit behind your opponent through here with the turbulent air and all of that. And DRS, as you can see, is enabled now. So Jake Dennehan has the rear wing hanging open as he goes down the straights, and he will be edging closer to the back of Tom Stevens leading THR.
That top four are already starting to create a gap as well between that second group. That's really not good. Adam Maguire needs to step up pace just a little bit. Close up to the back of Luke Maguire. He's out of slipstream at the moment, out of DRS range as well. As we see Luke Maguire going fastest, no wonder he's gapping his brother Adam. But pretty sensible now from everybody. Finally getting into the rhythm. Everyone's got just a little bit of space for themselves. Let's see what Luke can do. He's looking like very quick. There you see the little Cats logos. We go yellow in sector 1. I wonder what that's for. Anybody going down? Looks like Giuseppe Lino is out of the race. First DNF on lap 4.
Unfortunate stuff. Pescara have been struggling recently, and we're going to see a replay of what happened to this car. Giuseppe Lino heading into the Abbey curve. Car gets away from him, gets really away from him, and he slams into the barriers. A little bit of a strange one, because it looked after the first twitch as if he was going to be able to leave the steering wide open and just let the car run out. But instead it twitched again, and he ended up going left into the barriers. So unusual, but that corner does catch people out from time to time. And I'm watching the replay back again on the stream just to work out exactly why he lost control.
Oh,
and there is Jake Dennehan. So never mind, Jake Dennehan goes up the inside and is through into the lead now on Tom Stevens. And they back themselves up into a bit of a train here as well. Stepkowski and Luke Maguire are right there now. Tom Stevens coming back to him on the exit. A little too far back, heading up towards Abbey, but yes, it was always going to happen, I'm afraid. Jake Dennehan was looking racy on the previous lap with the wing hanging wide open. And this time around, there was absolutely nothing that Tom could do about it. It's very reminiscent of Lando Norris taking the lead in the early stages of the British Grand Prix this year, and Max Verstappen reeling him in and looking completely inevitable. But now it begins to rain. So watch this, as up the inside, Luke Maguire takes third position away from Daniel Stepkowski, and will have the inside for Luffield. A very good move there into turn 6 of the lap, I believe Brooklands is, and through he goes. So back into a THR 2-3, both THR cars on the podium as we speak. And now we wait to see if anyone has what it takes to keep up with Jake Dennehan, who has the highest average finishing result of this season so far. Or sorry, the lowest average finishing result, because you want to have the lowest, that's what everyone aims for. But the highest average points per race of anyone in this season so far. And he's still behind Tom Stevens in the championship due to missing the Spanish Grand Prix. Although Tom Stevens has put up quite a fight with him so far in this championship. We really haven't seen that much rain thus far this year. There's been a lot of rain in other categories, but Super League has been relatively dry so far. So now we start to see if the drivers, or if the pecking order is shaken up a bit as the precipitation begins to fall.
Yeah, it's coming down quite a bit, and Chef going a little bit wide there. I wonder if that was from following or anything to do with a little bit of rain, making it a little bit slippy for him. But you can see Luke Maguire on a charge, already pulling just a little bit of a gap, 0.6 on Stepkowski. But again, now Stepkowski's got to look in the mirrors again, because he's got another Maguire chasing him right behind as he goes a little bit deep there as well. Not looking, Stepkowski's looking a little bit ropey, a little bit on the edge. He just needs to keep his head on his shoulders. It's early in the Grand Prix, there's still plenty of time to go. Stevens is really pressing pressing on Dennehan here. These two still looking like the fastest on track, but I reckon these two are just going to be going backwards and forwards between each other, first and second, and at the moment it's the worst position for the THR boys. They really need to get a car in front of Dennehan, and then they can manipulate him and work together.
Yeah, little slide there, and off in the background, that looked like Daniel Stepkowski. So Stepkowski has spun. It looks like he's kept it out of the wall, but he went deep into the gravel. He's returning to the circuit. Everyone sees him and avoids him. That's very much like Sergio Perez in the sprint race back in 2021. And unfortunately, he's going to lose plenty of positions from that one. I was going to say, actually, and I'm still going to say it, as Tomasz Vok comes into the pits now. Never mind, I'll cut away from that for the time being. Grankvist and Shepard also in. Masculi into the pits. This will all be for intermediate tyres at this point in the race. I don't know about extreme wets just yet, but it is getting much wetter. Here's Machete. Apparently he spun, so it is getting to that time of the day, and he's missing his front wing. You're absolutely right. It's starting, and it's chaos in pit lane. We've got loads of them in. Shepard, Grankvist, Stepkowski, Rural, Masculi, my goodness, Schluter. Matthew Williams is in, Fabian Schietzig's in, and we're going to see a replay now of exactly what happened. This is Ruben Machete, who we now see without the front wing. Don't hurt the cats, my friend. Oh, he's going to lose it. And off he goes onto the inside barrier. Not the heaviest of contacts, but he does hit it twice. And has to come back into the pit lane. Stepkowski is now on intermediate tyres. And this is a replay of, yes, well, he's on inters now. This is what he was... So that was back when he was on slicks and he had a spin. But unfortunately... not able to gather it up before digging himself into that gravel trap. I think he might still be on slicks, actually, because he doesn't appear... No, he's been in for inters, never mind. So there we go, the race continues. And you see the drivers, it looks like Tomasz Vok is the top driver on inters, so look out for him now, as the others are forced to struggle their way around on track. I think everyone's going to be coming in on this lap.
Dennehan looking really slow there, really slow. And he stays out, they all stay out.
Impressive stuff. Now what I was going to... Well, I don't know, because Raceview is still saying rain. But what I was going to say before this all happened was I was expecting Adam Maguire to be the first to jump in for inters. And I was going to say that as Zolt Schukes has hit the wall, he was on slick tyres still. Ooh, a little bit close with David Yunt. That was Alex Lahome, sorry. Here's a replay now of Zolt going off. He's already been off by that point. And it looks as, I think he probably went off again, didn't he, with the rear wing missing. Yeah, not the first time we've seen that by any means. Way off the circuit. And he's going to dink the barriers on his way back onto the circuit. What I was going to say, and what I've been trying to say about 5 times now, is that I was going to make the bold prediction that Adam Maguire would take the lead, but it's a little bit late for that now. That he's still down in 4th position and on slick tyres, as are the rest of the leaders. Tomasz Vok is up to 10th now.
Absolutely flying, but he needs to rely on the rain staying. Yeah, it's a brave call, that's for sure. The rain is still going though, but you never know. Well, it could drop off at any second. That's the thing. It's a risk, but you know it could pay off big time. He was at the back of that front queue and had nothing to risk really. It depends how much he'd rather a win over a P5. I know what I'd go for if I was in his position, and I would have took the inters. But we see it looks like they're absolutely crawling round. I'm not sure if I'm just seeing it. Oh, they stay out again. But we see Luke Maguire heads to the pits.
Yep, and Adam too. So both the Maguires come in. Lalu comes in behind them. So there are pit stops happening now. And I'm interested to see what the lap times are like. So Dennehan comes across the line. 146, 148, my goodness. So that's 15 seconds off his best lap. So he is way down in terms of pace. Tomasz Vok is the next driver that we really have to look out for in terms of times, but he is going to be significantly closer, I'll wager. And sorry, who's jumped who?
Wax jumped them all.
Yeah, no surprise there. So Vok goes through into 5th position, and his lap time was almost 5 seconds faster than Jake Dennehan's. He is absolutely flying. And there he is up the inside now of Pascal Pollens. Surely Wok will lead and it's gone. The rain is gone. The rain has stopped now. So the sun is back out, and those who stayed out on slicks might just have it playing back into their hands, providing it stays dry. This race is a little bit of a lottery at this point. The track is still a little bit slippery, and it's going to stay that way for a few more laps. So it's not over for those on inters just yet. They are still faster than those on dries. And if it starts to rain again before it becomes fully dry, then it may well be that slicks were the right tyres to stay out on. Sorry, Ryan.
Oh my god, I just can't make my mind up on what was a good strategy and what wasn't.
Well, that's because there's no right answer yet. We have to wait and see what happens in the future.
Shepard's all over the back of Warborn here, really pressing him. Yeah, I think it's very Ruben Machete DNF.
Well, we saw him missing his front wing. And it appears that here's a replay. Tom Stevens appears to be back in the pits potentially, or he's in the pits now. And that is quite late to be coming in for inters, especially since the weather's gone. Machete's had another accident there, and it's an even bigger one than his first one. He'll have gone heavily into the wall on the inside there, and unfortunately forced to retire. So Jake Dennehan will lead this race now, as Stevens does indeed go on to intermediate tyres. Those are soft tyres. So he's going on to another set of slick tyres now, and the graphics are saying hard tyres. The graphics are saying hard tyres. It looks like soft tyres to me. So I guess we've got to wait for it to update and see exactly what tyres he is on. He's going very sideways into that corner. They're very slippery. And there's a traffic jam behind him as Lalu and Fidok go side by side.
What's the gap now from Wok to Stevens? Only 8 seconds.
A quick update actually. Wok's last lap. Oh, never mind, I was reading it wrong. Wok is still... Oh, and it's raining again! So Wok is still faster than the drivers around him, and now it starts to rain again. So he breathes a sigh of relief as the precipitation once again comes down. There is Royal back alongside David Fidok. And there is Chris Shepard in 5th position. Now, I would absolutely like to be in Tomasz Wok's position at this point in time, because even if it does stop and start and stop and start, just as it has been doing all the way through this race so far, the inters are the best tyres to be on right now, and it's better to be on inters on a drying track than it is to be on slicks on a track that's getting wetter, that's for sure. There is Pascal Pollens dropping behind Chris Shepard, so Shepard goes through on the intermediate tyres, and surely it's not going to be long now until we see Tomasz Wok leading the race. We've got a train of 4 cars going into Stowe side by side, 2 by 2, and they managed to get through it with one of them coming into the pits. That was one of the Stax cars, potentially Philip Pushke. It's David Fidok, so the other of the Stax cars, and Pascal Pollens into the pits as well.
Oh my word, my stomach's doing backflips. This is so hard to call. See, one of the THR cars going off, was that Stevens? Yeah. I mean, Josh Downer's made a fantastic point in the YouTube chat. Not only has he gone on to slicks when it's been damp and again it started raining again now, he went on the hard tyres as well. The cold hard tyres on a wet slippery track, and he's just sliding everywhere. Look at that. He's doing a fantastic job to hang on to it, but I think that was the wrong call. If it was me, I would have went on softs again. If I was going to risk slicks, I would have done soft and then went hard again if it stopped raining completely. But yeah, it's either going to go one way.
At the best of times, I know they're the best tyres in the dry, but the thing is, when it's I can't think of the word off the top of my head, but when it's changeable like this, hard tyres are what you go onto when you commit to a tyre. You know, when you know it's going to be dry until the end of the race, that's when you go onto the hards. But it started to rain again. There is Janus Vorburn. Now he's on inters, and actually I'm not sure he is, but he's just had a little spin or something like that. Continues on, and yeah, he's on the hard tyres as well potentially, so struggling out there. Aris Masculi goes past Tom Stevens. Mark Schluter is going to go through as well. That's Maguire. So that's Matthew Williams passing him, my apologies. But Schluter and Rural have in fact got Stevens just up ahead. And Dennehan in the pit. So Tomasz Wok will take the lead And Dennehan will go onto intermediate tyres. There he goes. Grankvist second, Shepard third. Matthias Moos stays out, so he becomes the top driver on slick tyres at this point in time. And the track looks like a circuit no one should be out on slicks. Dennehan slightly balks his teammate on the exit to the pit lane there, but it was important that Rot did not get through.
There's even puddles forming as well now.
You can, and those are puddles you really don't want to get onto as a slick tyre runner.
If I was Maguire, Moose, probably not Stevens, though, I'd be even thinking if the rain continues.
Stevens is going to go off here, he's slithering wide, and he's going to get mugged by the drivers behind him. Through goes one of the edge cars, so that's not Stevens there, that's Luke Maguire, my apologies. So both THRs now on those slick tyres still. Matthias Moos going up the inside of sorry, wrong way round. That's Lalu on Masculi, I think. So Lalu up into 4th position now. And as for Tom Stevens and Luke Maguire, I think they're in denial, especially Tom Stevens. He's thinking, surely I can still make these hard tyres work. There must be some way.
I can't understand why. So Nocturne and THR work together. The Nocturne drivers went on to Inters.
And 3 wide on the straight, and they both mug Matthias Moos there. So that was Ruhl and Schluter, Dennehan and Schluter both going through. I'm finding it very difficult to keep up with who's who in this race. And into the pits behind them goes Matthias Moos. And also Tom Stevens. So he has now decided it's better not to stay out there any longer. In he comes. There's someone else coming in the background, and it's Adam Maguire. So Adam also into the pits as we speak. Was Adam still out there on slick?
I thought he was on Inters, but that might have been Machete that had gone on to Inters. I might be wrong. I just can't believe we're only on lap 13.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like it's been 50 laps already. The action has been unbelievable so far.
Been a slow one, especially because of the weather. But yeah, Adam Maguire was still out there on slicks as well. So he must have changed from softs onto medium. So he's made the wrong call as well, and that's really ruined the start of his race. I say the start of it because on days like this, there are going to be more bold strategy call later on. We're being told there's 10 more minutes of rain scheduled, but of course that could change as well. And
spray as well now. So it's like there's 10 minutes of rain. Even if it stops for the rest of the Grand Prix, it's going to take a little bit of time to clear this as well. So these Inters are probably going to be the tyre to go for at least the rest of the stint, and maybe even one more, even if it does stop raining. And then it turns into a train track around the track where it's just one dry line all the way through. Like we saw a little bit in Canada, but Canada still somehow provided some fantastic racing. But THR Nocturne gone the wrong way around this time. Last time in Canada they made the complete right call. Toby Davis, the race engineer, made the right call, and this time it looks like they've gone the wrong way.
And look at Eros Masculi, up 12 positions. He has absolutely predicted this right. I know it's only been 14 laps, but I've been very impressed by Eros so far. Firstly, going off on the first lap to avoid contact and ending up staying in the points-paying positions as a result, and then going on to the intermediate tyres at exactly the right time and making them work straight away. Same goes for Fabian Schiertzig. I've always been impressed by his wet weather driving ever since I saw him running right up near the front of the order in a super lights race at Azerbaijan last year. And I'm afraid to say the last driver out there on slick tyres is Luke Maguire, and he's going off the road as we speak. So
off-stage race.
Like, and he's going to lose it. Oh, good save, but he's going to get mugged again on the exit.
Well, it's great to watch though. Like when we were following him behind, he was fully locked up into that second hairpin in the first sector. It was impressive to watch. The fact he can even hang on to it, really good job. We're seeing a yellow flag, something to do with Matthias Muss, we think. Yeah, he's gone completely off, down to P20.
Rejoining the road. It's with Luke Maguire, it's like watching Kevin Magnussen at Monaco this year, just knowing that he's going to go off, but not quite knowing when, and then, you know, in disbelief every time he stays out for another lap, because he did end up hitting the wall in the end. And Jake Dennehan is about to make a move on Jakob Lalu, so even though he didn't quite come in at the right time. He's still a real threat in this race, a real contender, as we knew that he would be. And Dennehan is up to 4th, and Tomasz Wok is in the pits. So having pitted quite early on those, to go on to those intermediate tyres, he's in again. I don't think it's been raining enough to go onto full wet tyres. The inters must just be quite soft. Must just not be lasting very long.
We know they are. And he went on them while the track was a lot dry.
It's full wet.
Wet.
It's full wet tyres, so he thinks it's going to maintain this level of wetness or even get worse. Out of the pits now comes Tomasz Wok, and he's going to drop to 9th, 10th, 11th position. It's going to be 10th, actually, because he's going to be just ahead. It's 9th place. He's just ahead of Pascal Pollens there. And that is very brave. He's the first driver to do that, and you don't normally see the race leader as the first driver to pit for a new type of tyre. Matthias Moos here, running P20, and this is where he went off, and it's a big twitch and a big correction. Don't think he hit the barriers, but that's an awkward position to recover from. Luke Maguire is now in the pits, so even though he stayed out for quite a long time, even he has to concede the track position and come into the pits. And here's a replay of Jake Dennehan passing Chris Shepherd, so he is now up into 2nd position in this race with Wok's pit stop. He's got 5.8 seconds to gain, but it's Jan Granqvist who leads the race.
If I'm going to be honest, and I shouldn't say this because it's my own team, if I was, obviously Shuke's going for a little half spin there and he saves it, I would have sacrificed Stepkowski going on the wets for just 1 or 2 laps to find out if it was the tyre to go on.
I agree, I'm afraid, especially considering Stepkowski is all the way down in 23rd place.
Though. Oh yeah, he's on the wet, sorry. I thought.
Oh, so maybe they did.
So he's been in. I'm not sure if that was before or not. I feel like we saw a replay and he was still on inters, so it's interesting. It's so hard to see with this game. It just sometimes doesn't want to make its mind up on what tyres people are on.
And more into the pits. Pushke's out, I'm afraid to say. So Philip Pushke becomes another retirement to this Grand Prix. Into the pits come Ruel and Williams, and also some other drivers further back. Luke Maguire staying out so long, he actually went on to wet tyres, so full wet tyres, which does make sense, and he should make up a little bit of time with that. And here's what happens to Philip Pushke. Is it an accident or a disconnection? Around Maggots Beckett, in these conditions, you'd be leaning... Oh, never mind, it is a disconnection. I was going to say you'd be leaning more towards an accident, but never doubt Philip Pushke. He is out of the race through no fault of his own. And we have 24 drivers remaining now. Here's Lalu, and he runs 4th.
Wow, faster.
Top driver on wet tyres, and he is already past Pascal Pollens and a few other drivers. Brief yellow flag. Lalu has a good opportunity to get past Chris Shepherd here. He almost had a nose up the inside of Shepherd's car, and it looked as if he was going to up into Copse. Maggots Beckett's Chapel is a very difficult section of corners at the best of time, but with spray coming from the car in front, you've got to keep it safe through there. And there is Luke Maguire making a place back, so it appears that the full wet tyres are the fastest tyres to be on at this point in time. I would wager that they are.
I'm interested to see the timing tower, because at the start of the lap, the gap from Vak to Granqvist was 11 seconds.
Exactly.
And then it's already down to 10.
And Lalu's up to 3rd. So Lalu gets Shepherd for 3rd now. What I was going to say, though, as Tomasz Wok is side by side with Mark Schluter up into P6, what I was going to say is that if the rain is really only going to last for another 10 minutes, then would it be better staying out on inters and then going on to another set of inters depending on what the weather does? The answer is, who knows? But anyway, Mark Schluter into the pits.
I genuinely think no. I think this is wet and go until it's dry.
Fair enough. In
my opinion.
Shiertik's in, so both of the GSRs. We're told that Jake Dennehan is still faster than Tomasz Wok, and that appears to be true. So Dennehan's last lap 1:47.6, Wok a 1:48.9, but you have to keep in mind that Wok was overtaking cars and Dennehan wasn't. So Dennehan on the back of Jan Granqvist now. This is for the lead of the race. He's caught him so quickly. Remember when I said he had 5 seconds to gain? At the start of this lap, he had 1 second to gain, and now he's on his tail. Dennehan has been flying in these conditions, and he is right up with Jan Granqvist. Surely he will take the lead back in no time, considering the pace that he's showing, with no disrespect to Jan Grankvist. And the rain has stopped. So race view is now showing us that we have it's showing a little sun graphic. I think that's a bit optimistic, but even so, the rain has stopped. And this is why I was saying it might be better to stay out on intermediate tyres. Jake Dennehan is about to take the lead. Through he goes to the inside line, and despite having lost it earlier on through staying out on slicks longer than his opposition, Jake Dennehan is back through to the lead of the race, ahead of the two Super Venturi cars.
What did I call it at the start? Silverstone?
Indeed.
It's just proving that it's been all over the place. It's crazy. But that gap with Vok, it's getting a little bit stale. It's not quite coming down. And he's in free air as well now. It's coming down just a bit, but not as much as I was kind of expecting. Yeah, he's going to be quickly back on the back of Chris Shepherd, but Shep shouldn't put up too much of a fight with him. I wouldn't expect. Shep's having a great race as well, made the right call on tyres as well, up 7 places. He's been having the best round of his life so far. He said if he doesn't get a top 5, he's buying a new sim, because he's convinced that it's his equipment. So at the moment he's saving himself a pretty penny sitting in P4.
I think so too, and thank you very much. But anyway, into the loop section they go once again. Matthew Williams taking a little bit of a look up the inside of David Fidok, who sees him coming. That was a little bit ambitious. And a twitch from Fidok. Matthew Williams on the full wet tyres, sizing him up. Now, on that last lap, Wok was only 0.6 off Dennehan's lap, but we know that Dennehan is extremely fast. Even in these conditions on these tyres, he's impressing me even more than he has done at any other stage of the day so far. And he's already nearly a second ahead of Jan Grankvist, so even if the DRS came back, he would probably be okay at this point in time. 2 seconds. Oh yeah, he is, goodness. So RaceView's still yet to update itself, but he's already well clear of that DRS range if there was to be one. And you see the puddle still at the side of the track, so I still think it's a bit early for that. But oh god. Okay, so Szymon, if you have access to as we're going to see an incident there, contact, and around goes Fidok. And Williams does well not to rejoin into the side of that other car that was going through. Through goes Luke Maguire too, so Fidok does a full 360 and continues. Yeah, Szymon, if you have access to a forecast, are we expecting rain for the rest of the race? No rain, okay. Interesting. You see, exactly, it didn't show rain at the beginning either. And I wasn't expecting rain because I live less than a 2-hour drive away from Silverstone, and I haven't seen any rain yet today, and we do use live weather here, so who knows. But anyway, David Fidok ran a little bit wide, and then as he rejoined, just clipped the side of Matthew Williams' car. Williams did a very good job to hold it in a straight line, but Fidok had to do the full 360 before rejoining. Through went Adam Maguire, through went Luke Maguire, and through went Matthew Williams. And here's Pascal Pollins now, and Eris Masculi goes through on the inside up into sixth position.
That's losing time. I'd say he's lost half a second on this lap to Dennehan.
So much work, you say?
Yeah.
Well, it is starting to get away from full wet tyre conditions, so honestly, I think the Inters were the best tyres to stay on. I think what gave up the lead a little bit there, but that's the thing. That's hindsight. You never know.
Yeah. Let's see. There's still time. It could absolutely pellet down again. None of us know. Oh, was we see somebody going straight on? Was that Masculi?
It's Masculi.
Yes,
that
it
was a strange line.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that too often.
At least he's held on to it. I mean, that was a good save by Williams as well. After the little tap of Fidok, who did good to hold on to that. But yeah, it's just impossible to call. It's so hard to commentate on a race like this because you say one thing and you get proven wrong the next second. Honestly, I'm half tempted to just go get a flipping cup of tea, come back in 20 laps and see what's happened.
Yeah, sit back and relax, and let the race talk itself. But anyway, Mark Schluter on the back of Tom Stevens. Stevens recovering quite well actually, considering he stayed out for so long on those slick tyres. I just had a look back at why Masculi cut across the chicane. He didn't really have a twitch or anything. It looked more like an anticipatory bit of understeer, so he went straight on to make sure he wasn't going to get clattered into. And here's a replay now of this will be on board with Masculine. So he doesn't really have a twitch. I think it's just that he felt it starting to get out of shape. And rather than spinning, he decided to go straight on. There you go. And the twitch was probably brought on by him actually steering out of the turn. But anyway, rejoins the road, still in 7th position. Reminds me very much of what he did on the first lap of the race.
Yeah, both quite spectacular as well, the saves. Yeah, we're starting to see some normality now. Everyone's sort of settling into a bit of a rhythm. No more rain. Everyone will be flapping a little bit less than they were about 10 minutes ago. Just got to keep an eye on who's going up and down. We're probably going to start seeing some... Yeah, we've probably still a few laps actually off the next set of pit stops as well. A lot of the Inters runners especially were quite recent stoppers. Obviously the wet and intermediate tyres, as we see Collins making a move the inside of Shepherd, gets it
through into P5.
These wetter tyres really struggle degradation wise.
And Grankvist is in, so Grankvist into the pits now from 2nd position, and he will presumably go into another set of Inters. Oh, it's slicks. I was wondering if that was going to happen.
Oh,
it's slick tyres, it's mediums, and out he goes. Brave, brave stuff. I applaud you, whether it goes well or not. And I was just about to start talking about this because we've seen the track change very fast so far today. It is still relatively warm out there, and with so many cars going around, there is a dry line forming. And yeah, the question I was going to ask was, how long is it going to be before someone makes that move onto slicks? There is still drivers out there on full wet tyres, and yet Jan Grankvist has gone, you know what, I'm not even going to go softs, I'm going to go straight to the mediums. Fantastic stuff. And Jan is he's down in 10th position, but if this goes well, this is going to go very well. I've just seen that it looks like Masculi's just got past Shepherd as well, and Panzer, so it looks like Shepherd's losing places. Panzer around the outside finds the grip. Good move from Robin Panzer there to go all the way around the outside of Luffield. We assume that's what he did. Masculi still running a very good race here. Pescara ADG really need the points. They're the only team still on single-digit points. And there are the tyres that people run on. Tomasz Vok, the top wet tyre runner, running in 3rd place. So Masculi once again goes AWOL straight across the runoff area, trying to avoid having a spin. And surely he gained advantage in that one. He's going to have to back off a little bit. But yeah, very strange one. Caused him to go straight over the escape road for the 2nd lap in a row. And...
really need to be careful with that, because we saw the 2 penalties last round came from people straight line in the chicane.
And there's Maguire up the inside of Ruel for P11. So it looks as if, and a big twitch, but he holds it together, and they both head into the pits, presumably for slick tyres. Chris Shepherd also in. He's been struggling for a few laps now, and with Grankvist out there on slicks and not dropping it on his out lap, I'm expecting more people to go, right, it's possible, let's do it. And look at this. Raw in, Williams, Maguire, Moose, Shitzik. There's loads and loads of people streaming down the pit lane as we speak. And I'm expecting everyone on the full wet tyres to come in as well very shortly. And probably get a little bit of a shock as well, going from the very grippy full wet tyres to the very slippery slick tyres. Chris Shepherd has gone straight onto hard tyres. Most other people opting for the mediums. And we wait to see what Luke Maguire and the others will do. Luke, is that... I don't know if that's not a... That might be a fault. That might have not updated itself yet, but it says that Luke Maguire is still on the full wet tyres, which I would be absolutely shocked about. Unless he wasn't serving a penalty or anything, but surely he hasn't gone onto full wet tyres, and we're being told he might be on mediums, as Tom Stevens runs wide.
Yeah, struggling to get the 10 pin. Maybe went a little bit offline as well. If I was Dennehan and Lalu, I'd stay out. If I was anybody else, I'd be in for slicks right now, from that 3rd to 6th. I'd take a gamble again. I mean, that's what Wax done this entire flipping race. He's rolled the dice like 3 times now. But you got to be done. Got to go on to mediums till the end of the race now. I think the hard...
Locks in.
Yeah, I knew it would be. It had to be done, especially with the wet. He needed it the most, I think. Almost everybody is gone from what I've said there, apart from Panzer. So,
Collins
needed
and
to be done. Let's see what he does. Mediums or hards.
Stevens and Shepard appear to be side by side. They're swapping places on track, and Shepard drops behind Mark Schluter now. Masculi, Wok, and Pollins exit the pits. And what tyres is Wok on? I know it says full wets, but apparently he's on hard tyres now, so running to the end of the Grand Prix will be his goal. There you see the dry line, so it is forming, even though it's still slippery out there. And Eros Masculi, that looks like... oh, it's soft. He's on the soft tyres, so he's gone a little aggressive.
Could he be anticipating rain?
Possibly, yeah, possibly, later on.
Who knows?
Yeah, that's the phrase of the race, isn't it? Who knows? Normally we're crossovers, yeah. Normally we're saying everything's interesting, but today it's outright baffling.
It's a lottery. Absolute lottery, and it seems to be working for some people and not for the others, but the THR boys are making a slow but steady comeback, especially Stevens. I mean, we saw him get a little twitch on. See, Dennehan hits the pits, had to react. He had to react fast to what everybody else was doing.
Jake Dennehan had just put in one of the stints of the season so far. He built up a 12-second lead, and Jakub Egalalu hits behind him as well. Dennehan will probably not be in the lead when he comes out of the pits, but he won't be far off it, and he'll still have quite a comfortable net lead, I reckon, and he goes onto the medium tyres, which will last him a good while. Whether it'll take him to the end or not is doubtful, because people were not going that far on the softs early on, or the inters later on. Here's Robin Panzer and Jan Grankvist, and Dennehan has maintained the lead. He's still 4.5 seconds ahead of Robin Panzer on pit exit, which shows you just how far he got ahead into the lead of the race. Panzer is yet to pit. There's Jakub Egalalu. And we're seeing the timing sheets update themselves now. So after 24 laps of racing, Dennehan leads, followed by Panzer, the top driver still on intermediate tyres, and one of only two by the look of it. Then Grankvist and Lalu, the Super Venturis, third and fourth. Tomasz Wok, then Pascal Pollins, Tom Stevens, Eros Masculi, Mark Schluter, and Chris Shepard. And this race, which is still highly unpredictable, is starting to look a little bit more normal, with Jake Dennehan now leading by quite a significant amount of time, and having built up that advantage in the last stint. Dennehan, despite being on inters up until that pit stop, was still lapping. I think he was the second fastest driver on track the lap before he came in. Interestingly enough, David Yunt was the fastest driver on track that time around, and he's still looking very... In fact, David Yunt's last lap was pretty strong as well, although the fastest driver on track appears to have been Tom Stevens, so look out for that. Here's the driver behind Stevens, Eros Masculi, who will have... Is that DRS open now? So the DRS has been re-enabled. It's getting to that stage, isn't it? DRS is typically enabled a bit earlier in GPVWC than it would be in real life, about when the track becomes 10% damp. Into the chicane they go.
The line's getting wider as well, wider and wider, almost 2 car widths wide.
In some places, yeah.
Yeah, some places, yeah.
Here we go into Abbey. Then Farm. A little wide there from Stevens. His last lap still pretty good. Fastest driver on track that lap appeared to have been Adam Maguire. So the times are changing. Matthew Williams was very fast that time round as well. It looks as if it's going to be slick tyres to the end of the race, but you can never be 100% sure about things like that. Robin Panzer is about to be caught by Jan Grankvist for second place, we believe. That time is coming down quite dramatically, and I would be surprised to see Panzer staying there for much longer. Grankvist is hunting his 4th podium finish in a row here, and he's played his cards very, very well. Both the Super Venturis have. Because if you remember, on the first lap of the race, they dropped down to about 10th and 12th. And then all of a sudden, partway through the weather episode, They were back up into second and third position, which is where they will probably be in due time as well. And Panzer now bails out, so goes into the pit lane, and it will be Super Venturi second and third.
Honestly, these SV guys, every time they have a good strategy, always call it really well. Last time out, it was Granquist who managed to pull back, starting on the wrong tyre to a P3. So really good from them too. Back is close to the back of Lalu though, so that's something we can keep an eye on. Might see a change there, but Granquist's well clear now. Which again, he was behind Lalu and Wack going at the stint before that wet stint there. So doing a great job. And Danahan, I mean, do I even have to say that he's absolutely smashed it? It's obvious, isn't it? We all know it.
Of course not. Shepherd now fighting with Rural. Panzer came out 9th there, and he's on hard tyres, which can presumably run to the end of the race. Now, that's not bad from Panzer at all. I understand why he tried to keep it out for so long on those inters, and I think he's done a good job there. David Yunt. Ooh, and there's going to be a little bit of a touch there between Maguire and Panzer. David Yunt is also impressing me though, because even though he's still on inters, he's still relatively fast. It was only 2 laps ago that he was honestly probably the fastest driver on track. He did drop off quite a lot on that last lap though, as the slicks are really starting to come into their own now. And Maguire goes up the inside, and there's another little touch as he goes through, but Adam Maguire takes 9th position away from the newly pitted Robin Panzer. And in the background you see Rob versus Shepherd.
Looking away, these guys all using themselves as a little DRS train, just pull each other up to the back of the next group. Raul looks like he's going to go for a move. It's good, to be fair, that this the dry line's pretty wide, so we're not just seeing like a train all the way through. We're seeing some people being able to do some successful overtakes. Raul's on an absolute charge as well. Panzer just struggling to fire these tyres up, I think, but again, it might be short-term pain for a long-term gain. If he's obviously not going to have to box for the rest of the Grand Prix now.
Indeed, David Yunt now into the pits. I think probably left it out maybe 2 laps too long on those intermediate tyres. Matthew Williams now joining the train, so it's a 4-way fight for that 10th position. Panzer, Rupp, Shepherd and Williams. Panzer doesn't appear to have got his tyres up to temperature just yet, because Maguire was able to pass him pretty quickly, and now he's very much holding up a chain. Rupp takes a look, gets his nose chopped off nearly. Now into Luffield once again. Jake Dennehan has once again built out a 10-second lead at the front of this train now, at the front of this race. And who would have predicted that a few laps ago when he came out 6th after his pit stop? And Yannis Vorburn appears to have had a little slide or a little spin or something. Recovers in P21, just been passed by Alex Lahoud. And we're going to see a replay of exactly what happened to him just now. This will be probably midway through that corner. Seemed to lose it as he shifted down the gears, maybe just a little bit. Maybe the engine just not quite liking what he was doing there, and around he went. And Panzer has now been passed by Rural for 10th.
Yeah, a bit of a shame for Panzer.
And that's an accident
for that wing.
That's Chris Shepherd, yeah, who we saw running right up in the top 3 earlier on. He's going to lose it again. That's predictable. We saw that happening earlier on.
That from a mile away.
Yeah, unfortunately, Chris Shepherd's race has just, if not come to an end, at least his challenge for the top 10 has. Here's a replay of the wrong driver, so we'll go back to Chris Shepherd and see if we can pick out what happened to him. He was in that fight with Rural and the others, and it's going to be on the exit of Chapel. That looks, oh, he's going to lose it. It's right as he opens the DRS, right as the car gets a little bit light. Maybe he still had a little bit of steering input in the car, just got a bit too light for him, avoiding action being taken by the Green Stripes car. Mark Schluter. Actually, I think I was probably shit sick at that point in the road. And unfortunately, Shepherd's had to make an unscheduled pit stop. And David Yunt's back in the... Actually, I'm not sure if he is. That might just not have been... No, David Yunt is still in the pits. So either that's a long stop or he's come in for the second time. in just a couple of laps. Yeah, I think Junt's probably had an incident out there too.
Yeah, it's a shame, considering he was going decent on the mentors, but it happens, especially in these tricky conditions. All it takes is just getting a little bit of undersea and you end up on the wet and you go off, as I think we're going to see a replay of it here. Let's see if we can see what he does.
When we come back from this replay by the way, he's gonna...
no!
And it's Chris Shepherd.
Chris.
So Shepherd has rejoined right into Junt's line, and David could do nothing about that. You could see he was right on the right-hand side of the road and just got collected. So an unsafe rejoin there, and I'm afraid that's almost definitely going to be a penalty.
Whoa, that's Lalu going wide.
And through into third place goes Tomasz Vlok. I was just about to say, when we come back from this replay, they're going to be at it. And through into third now goes Tomasz Vlok, who was gaining for a good amount of time there. And through he goes. So the top three once again changing in this race. We no longer have both Super Venturis in the top three, and Chris Shepherd has now retired from this race. So 22 cars remain.
Yeah, just lucky there for Vak that he was behind when we hit the DRS detection zone as well. They managed to keep the DRS down that straight. Lalu could do nothing about it, so good for him. Let's see if he can pull away. He's almost at a second as we get a replay here of Chris coming out of the pits after.
Has he had another incident?
Yeah, he's DNF'd as well, I believe.
I mean, I know he's DNF'd, but I thought he'd retired in the pits, to be honest. But it looks as if he's come out from the pits and decided to retire then. Okay, so with that all out of the way, we're now going to watch that fight for P3 that we just about missed. Lalu actually made a mistake, didn't he? So even though they were already close enough to be in a fight, it was Lalu sliding the tail out that allowed Tomasz Vlok to get that move done in the end. So there you go.
Sorry, just reading the YouTube chat, Headhunter saying that if Vak can go longer, he could potentially lead the race for a little bit. I think he's more interested in leading the race for a long bit than a little bit. Ideally, well actually, no, he'd want to lead for a little bit, even if it's just the final lap. But yeah, I think he's got a bigger picture strategy-wise on his mind. He's going to have to if he wants to try and get anywhere near Dennehan, claw back 19 or 18 seconds.
Of course, Tomasz Vlok actually did lead the race earlier on,
and
ended up giving up the lead. And of course, he did that for a short-term pain, long-term gain. But unfortunately, the weather had other things in mind, and Vlok's strategy was not quite able to hold up as much as he would have liked. Even so, though, still running in third position, and who knows, he might have been in third anyway. He does appear to be quicker than most of the other drivers around him at this point in time. One of the fastest drivers on the road. His lap time's not quite representative since he's been in and amongst a couple of other cars over the past few laps, but this one's looking strong, and I reckon he is going to gain time on Jan Grankvist out of all of it. About 9 seconds to gain now, so keep your eyes on that gap and see if it comes down in due time. We're actually starting to see a couple of green sectors for the first time in a very long time, so it looks as if part of the circuit is very nearly dry now. Mark Schluter said a green middle sector, meaning a personal best of the race so far, quicker even than when it was dry right at the start of the race. No one else setting green sectors just now, understandably, because of course at the start of the race they were also in a little bit of traffic. But I have to say, the track is really not that far off what it was. The drivers all lapping only about 2 seconds off their pace from the start of this race, and in due time it's going to be fully slick, I'd say.
Yeah, it's well on the way, or at least, even if it's not fully slick, it's still a bit wet on the outside. You kind of aim not to be out there anyway, so it only really matters on the bit that you're driving on. I think Vak and Lalu could really push together here if obviously they won't be talking to each other, so they wouldn't have a clue, but if they can just keep the heads down and work, because obviously they're on the hard tyres compared to the people around them. These are definitely going to the end. So if the likes of Granquist, Pollen, Stevens end up, say, doing a last minute pit for softs, if these two battle now, that's going to impact that, like the time difference at the end. between them and the people around them, so they just need to keep their heads down, lose the least amount of time as possible, pretty much.
Mark Schluter here, running 8th in the Green Stripes racing car. Last time out, Green Stripes had quite a result with P11 for Mark Schluter. He came second for them at the Spanish Grand Prix, so I expect P11 wouldn't have felt too special for him, but it did jump them up past both Epic Racing and Holland Racing Team in the championship. Or at least the second place did, sorry. Epic Racing actually scored a couple more points last time out, with Jeffrey Fournier finishing in 7th position. Still, the team that really desperately needs points is Pescara, being the only team in single digits, and Mood Auto Concepts haven't scored points in 3 races either, due to a string of misfortunes, including only being able to run one driver at the last race. But at the other end of the scale, Super Venturi has just been getting better and better and better. We're watching Pekka Lalu as he's once again on his way to potentially, I mean, if he continues to fight with Tomasz Vlok, potentially a double podium for the team. That would be really quite something. And there is Tom Stevens passing Pascal Pollens for 5th position. I nearly said 5th position. Too many P's in that sentence there, but there you go. Up into P5 goes Tom Stevens, and it's been an impressive recovery from him. Earlier on in this race, I was almost ready to declare his race over, because he was dropping back so far on those hard tyres, and it looked as if he could lose control at any minute. But managed to keep it under control, as did Luke Maguire, who was also out there on slicks for a very long time, but hasn't quite been able to get back up to the same level that Tom Stevens has. Tom Stevens, of course, the championship leader, and will be getting points back for every car he passes, the next target being Pekka Lalu, about a second up the road.
He's really flying. Stevens, it's really quite the turnaround from what looked like a dreadful start. But that's what happens if you just have good pace, keep your head down and keep out of trouble. The race will come to you in the end. And it certainly is. He's still got a good chance of a podium. Depends what Vach can do really in the later stage of the race, when his tyres are going to obviously, well, depending on if these stay on the medium to the end, the hard might end up being the favourable tyre come the last sort of 5, 6, 7 laps of the race. But Lalu just sitting in behind, keeping in the DRS range, probably saving up all of his push to pass as well. Leave that for a bit later when he kind of needs to deploy it in the last 5 or 10 laps. Yeah, just pretty steady stuff from everybody so far. Still 22 drivers going around the track at the moment. 4 DNF, which is not great, but could be worse considering the conditions that we've had. It's nice to again see us having a full grid, as we should in the top flight of GPVWC. And yeah, really good quality grid this year as well. Really good talent throughout. See, Rualt hits the pits as well from P12. Let's see where he goes on to here.
Goes on to whatever will take him to the end, probably a set of mediums. Yeah. But anyway, into the box he goes. And I was about to ask actually, who do you reckon, as Adam Maguire now goes side by side with Mark Schluter, goes through, who do we reckon is going to get to the end on this set of tyres? I've been wondering about Denham, because the way he's pushing and the way he went on to mediums earlier than some people went on to hards shows me he might be in a little bit of I'm not entirely, I'll rephrase that, I'm not entirely sure he can make it to the end on these tyres.
Well, he's safe on whack, that's for sure.
I think so too, but I mean, you know Denham wants to win, especially with Stevens getting places like this.
Was it the other one's sector 1? That's far, but Stevens on mediums as well. So,
of course.
Yeah, I'm interested. McGorgy seems to think in chat he's saying the only person making it to the end is Robin. I'm not sure.
Well, One driver not making it to the end will be Alex Lahoud, who will have to make a pit stop relatively urgently if he's even able to get back there. Here's a replay of something that's just happened to him at turn 1. Gets all over the curbs. That's a very heavy impact, and he's lucky to still have his wheels attached to the car. In real life, never mind recovering to the race. That's, how quickly can I get out of the medical centre? But there you go. Yellow flags in Sector 1 once again. And it's Alex trying to recover to the pit lane. Here's Jan Grankvist running in second, and there's been a swap because Stevens is up to P4, so Stevens still on a charge. Now, when you first said they were flying, you were absolutely right, because I looked at the timing sheet, and the two THRs were the fastest drivers on the circuit. Now it appears that other drivers are actually setting personal best lap times. So for the first time since before the rain happened, as we saw Alex Lahoud stopped on the right-hand side, and Stevens goes through. But for the first time since before the rain happened, drivers are now setting personal best lap times. Alex Lahoud has now DNF'd from this race, and no surprises considering the rate at which he hit the wall. Florian Gaia goes up to 18th place as a result of that and sets a purple third sector. So not only are we now seeing personal best sectors out on the track, we're seeing the best sectors set in the race so far. The track is pretty much fully dry at this point, and Jan Grankvist comes into the pits. So you might be right there about not everyone being able to get to the end. Jan Grankvist, everyone not being able to get to the end, but Jan Grankvist has come in for another set of mediums. Those should take him to the end now, and I think the question now is when and not if Jake Dennehan, Thomas Fock and plenty of the other drivers will come in for their final stop.
Looks that way. I thought the tyres would go a bit further, especially the hard lot. I think they'd be very brave then looking at the pit stop strategies from other people if them hards would go to the end, but yeah, I really expected a one stop at first, but looks like two stops would have been the way then, judging by how they're pitting. I mean, obviously it's like third or fourth stop for some people, but just thinking if it was a completely dry race, I was very wrong about it being a one stop. But it's very different when you're in a proper race scenario. You know, these guys do race sims where they, practice a full distance, but if you've only got 3 or 4 guys, it's a lot harder than having a full grid, if you know what I mean, to prepare for. You push differently in different places, and certain scenarios force you to do things in different ways. But again, we're not racers, we don't do anything. So as we see Stevens dive into the pits.
And that's interesting because he was catching Thomas Fock at quite a rate of knots there. Also in behind him is someone else, possibly Mark Schluter, or it's Adam Maguire and Mark Schluter, so I was right. And they all come down the pit lane. Jan Grankvist is possibly on his way to setting a personal best lap as well. So as the track gets quicker and drivers stop, the race is about to have another shake-up. Out of his box goes Stevens, nearly into the path of Schluter, but luckily his box was right there as well. And out onto the road they go. It wasn't a personal best lap from Grankvist, but only because that was an outlap from the pit, so his first sector let him down. I think as soon as he's able to string a whole lap together, he will be setting personal bests, and maybe the fastest lap of the race of all so far. Pascal Pollens had a personal best that last lap, as did David Feidock and Florian Gaia, and Zolt Schukes running down in 21st position as well, so the track getting so much quicker. Jake Dennehan now leads by 20 seconds ahead of Thomas Fock as he continues to extend away, but he still has to stop for his final pit stop.
That's where I'm just keeping an eye out now as we get to the end of this lap. Who's gonna think about pitting? What do we think Dennehan's gonna do? I'm really interested to see here because he's got such a gap. He doesn't have to care, really. Not until Stevens is on the back of Walk, he really doesn't have to worry. Really,
and Pollens,
quite interesting.
Pollens is in the pits from what was 4th position. I know it put him up to 2nd briefly there, but that's only because you actually do gain a couple of positions on the way to the pits with the way you cut the chicane. But yes, Pascal Pollens into the pits as well. And now he begins to drop down the order. He'll go on to his final set of tyres, and David Feidok also in. Jan Granqvist just set the fastest lap of the race so far, demonstrating to us that the track is now dry and probably will be to the end. It's a 1:32.0, so nowhere near lap record pace, but then again it wouldn't be. And he continues to gain on his teammate Lalu. Lalu, of course, still needs to make another stop, so Granqvist will be well inside the podium places, presumably still net second. And actually, when Denahan pits, he's going to be a bit closer than Denahan would feel comfortable with, I'd say. He's going to have two cars. At this point, he'd still have two cars between them. I'm not entirely sure, as Luke Maguire goes up the inside of Stefan Roth and makes the play stick. Not entirely sure that Denahan would be able to come out in front of Wok. I think it would be close.
I think he would, just about.
It is quite a short pit lane here, so...
Yeah, I think he's clear. But again, it's like, even if Denahan pits and he gets jumped by a couple of seconds, he'll have way fresher tyres. So these guys need a miracle. They need it to start raining, especially the people who are on hards. They need it to start raining ASAP.
Of course. Here's Tom Stevens about to set the fastest lap of the race so far. He would get a point for this if it was to finish now, although still plenty of time for people to take that away from him, especially as the track continues to get drier. It's a 1:31.698 in the end, and we're about to see a replay. This is Daniel Stepkowski. Close your eyes, Ryan. Into Kopp's corner he goes, gets on the curb, glides. It's going to be a good save, very Max Verstappen 2016 Brazil-esque, but the tyres will not be thanking him for that. And back on his way he goes in 16th position. Still a chance of points potentially, but he'll need to stop again before the end of this race. And here is the fastest driver on track right now, Tom Stevens, as he catches Matthew Williams. I think Tom will be back in the top 5 by the end of this. And Denahan's in. Denahan in from the lead. He built up 23 seconds, and I think that's just about going to be enough. I think that Denahan will exit this race, or exit the pit lane, in the lead of this race. He'll stop for probably another set of mediums, considering the softs haven't been lasting that long today. Almost takes down his virtual mechanics. He is going softs. So Denahan, not just going to the end now. He might well go for fastest lap while he's at it. He feels confident. And don't worry about the car coming through now. That is a lapped car. That will be David Yunt there. Denahan does keep the lead. He's 3 seconds out in front. Eris Masculi pits as well. And that will put Tom Stevens back up into the top 5 now. Wow, what do you make of that, eh? Jake Denahan making another stop where he comes out in the lead of the race, and comfortably so.
Yeah, knew it'd happen. He's not daft, is he? And he's just made every call's been the right one. It's mad. Can't believe how much he just nailed it. Absolutely nailed it at the edge, boys, and himself.
I think what happened...
Nobody's been able to touch him.
I think what's given him such an advantage in this race was his second stint on intermediate tyres, when he was absolutely flying, picking off well, it wasn't the fastest laps of the race up to that point, but he was miles faster than anyone else on the inters, and just seemed to get quicker as the stint wore on. And I think it was that stint that put him with an unassailable lead in this race. Even though he was still technically behind Thomas Rock at that point, and even though we weren't sure what the weather was going to do, Jake did exactly what he needed to, and he will continue to build his advantage now. As through on Robin Panzer is going to go Adam Maguire. Maguire goes to the inside, P8. Now Adam is an example of a driver who hasn't got the strategy right today, but has been fast enough to negate that to a certain extent. Matthew Williams into the pits from 5th position on his return to GPVWC for the first time in just over a year now. Comes in and changes onto a new set of tyres. Jake Denahan has already built out a second in this lap already. His first sector was 9/10 of a second faster than Thomas Vok's, even though Vok is on personal best pace, which shows you just how amazingly fast Jake Dennehan is. And on those those new soft tyres, maybe a bit too fast there through Copse, running over the curb. This is the moment where he comes on the radio and goes, "Oh, almost knocked myself out on the curb there." Starts to joke about how far out in front he is. Sorry, was that right?
Go for a fast lap, clearly. As I was saying already, he ran wide. He'll be on the radio saying his tyres are gone already. doing a Lewis Hamilton. But yeah, it still looks like his lap's valid as well. Even
look at this.
That extension.
Very, very purple here. Very purple looking screen. He's improved his second sector by about a second and sets the fastest lap easily. He's not just the first driver into the 131s, he's the first driver into the 130s. Sorry, there were drivers in the 131s before, but he is easily into the 130s now. He's over a second faster than the previous fastest lap in this race. And I'm afraid to say Jake Dennehan is looking absolutely unassailable today. Even though he didn't take pole position in the race, he's had the pace for it. And I felt, as Granqvist now is going to get back past Lalu, makes it rather easy for him, I felt like I was being a little mean earlier on when I was implying that it was inevitable he was going to get past Tom Stevens, but he really did look inevitable right from the start of the race. And after he was through, it was just like watching Max Verstappen, honestly. And he now leads by 6 seconds already.
Yeah, 6 seconds are ridiculous. I mean, there's still 10 laps to go. I'm curious about Wack. I'll be honest, because obviously Granqvist is on a charge, so it's more than likely that Granqvist is going to get him. But you know, he's on the same tyres as Lalu and he's ahead. He's just got to keep an eye on Stevens. He either has to go right now and pit and go on to softs and have the best 10 laps of his life, or he has to hang out to the end and hope that Tom doesn't pull back 11, 12 seconds on him. I'm not sure which I'd rather go for, to be honest. I think I'd probably hang it out. If he can actually go that far, that is.
Owen McCorkey saying...
Tyres are like.
Yeah, indeed. Owen McCorkey saying, I had more of a reaction than Jake then. And to be honest, I can understand that because, well, Jake knows that he's under control, and Jake is under control, clearly. We don't necessarily know what's going on in that car. And when you see him start to run wide like that, it's like, oh, where's he going? But Jake knows that he's got it all under control. Less than 10 laps to go in this race now. Dennehan leads by 8 seconds ahead of Tomasz Vok. And then it's Jan Granqvist and Jukka-Pekka Lalu running 3rd and 4th in the Super Venturis. Lalu doing one of his signature very long stints that I was talking about right at the start of this broadcast. Tom Stevens is in 5th position. There is Adam Maguire now passing Pascal Pollens for 6th. So Maguire goes through to 6th, then Pollens is 7th. Mark Schluter is 8th, then it's Robin Panzer, Eris Masculi, Luke Maguire, Stefan Rohr, Matthew Williams, David Feidock, and Matthias Moos in the points so far. 17 drivers are on the lead lap. It looks as if 20 drivers are still in this race, although Zork has just come into the pits. Looks like Granqvist was pretty close to walk on that lap, but we switched away to look at Rohr and Williams. And yes, indeed, Granqvist has got around the outside of Tomasz Vok into 2nd position. It definitely looked as if he was gaining that time back, and through he has now gone. So Jan Granqvist taking over 2nd place in what looks to be his 4th podium finish in a row if he can keep this up. Yeah, wow, he came from quite a way back, didn't he?
Yeah, quite a way back.
How much push to pass? Do you think he used all of it?
Yeah, I don't think Vac was going to put up much of a fight either. I think he knows that his battle's not with Granqvist anymore. But just out of stream, got the edge guys trying to throw us off the scent with Jake's tyre wear. Sandeep sending me fake screenshots saying that Jake has to do another stop by the end of the race, saying he's got like 30% tyre wear. Okay, Sandeep, I'm sure. But trying to get us to feed false information to his rivals.
Fair enough, fair enough.
It works, it works.
Owen's apparently been telling Jake off for that running wide we saw a few laps ago. It shows you how good a driver Jake actually is, that mistakes like that are seen as notable. But anyway, Tom Parker says, I think everyone seeing Jake set that lap in the race is the same reaction in SL2 when Owen does it after his final stop. Yes, indeed, Owen McGorgy has been doing an awesome job in Super League Lights himself recently, having finished first every time he's finished a race but once so far this season. 2 DNFs admittedly, but already 55 points clear of his nearest rival in the Superleague Championship, and he won at Silverstone just the other day. Brief yellow flag. If you're wondering as well, if you don't follow these series, the winners in Formula Sprint 1 here at Silverstone were Carlos Martin and Luke Mitchell. Carlos Martin and Martin Hemmingson. I read that very wrong. So it was a very good day to be called Martin, I suppose. And then in Formula Sprint 2, Roy Seifert won race 1 and Mikael Tuomala won race 2 on that day. And Luke Mitchell actually wasn't able to make FS2 in Silverstone, which allowed Roy Seifert to catch up slightly in the championship. So that's your unusual rundown for the other championships that we have on the GPVWC calendar. And like you said, yeah, Owen McGorgy set to become the next Jake Dennehan, it looks, judging by his performance in SL2.
Yeah, might see them together in a lineup next year, who knows. But I tell you what, if I'm Wack, I'm hoping I've got lots and lots of push to pass. Like, not only because Lalu's pressing him, because I can see Stevens is just getting ever so slightly closer, just plucking a little bit away. Some laps it's quite a bit, some laps it's just a couple of tenths, but that's only going to get worse and worse for these two guys. We still can't see Stevens in the back of shot, but he'll be coming up thick and fast, and what Wack needs to do is just keep ahead until Stevens gets near, and then as soon as Stevens starts pressing on Lalu will have to start looking forwards and backwards, and then Wack can start deploying his push to pass if he's got it saved up. And that's the beauty, is we also don't know.
And look at that leaderboard there. Up 8 places is Jan Granqvist, up 9 is Pascal Pollens. Those two putting on quite a show so far today. Of course, the biggest losers being those who have DNF'd, whether through their own fault or whether through disconnections or other people causing accidents or things like that. The only other driver who's dropped significantly, I'm afraid to say, is Daniel Stepkowski after his big spin earlier on, and then being used a little bit sacrificially, going onto the full wet tyres quite early. But, you know, still with a chance of a point or two today. Here's Jukka-Pekka Lalu on the back of Tomasz Vok now. Vok not as quick as he was earlier on in the stint, and Lalu's going to go up the inside, and once again we're going to have 2 Super Venturi cars on the podium. Never mind, he's going to lose it, and back through goes Tomasz Vok on the outside. They're very lucky they didn't both end up spinning off into the gravel there. There was a little bit of contact, and we're about to see a replay of exactly what happened. So we're on board with Lalu as he slipstreams and DRS's his way up to the back of the Powered by RSR car, goes up the inside, misses the turn into the corner slightly.
It was too deep.
There was a little bit of a bump there. Was that just a bump in the braking zone, or did they touch earlier? There's the corner again. Or the contact again, rather. But yeah, it appeared there was a bump on the inside of the corner too, which just unsettled him slightly, and he wasn't expecting it to be there.
Yeah, and, you know, made a bit of contact with Tomasz as well, which isn't good, because now, like I was saying, Stevens has halved the gap almost to what it was like a lap or two ago. And that will not have helped. They've at least lost a second and a half, 2 seconds from that, the two of them. So it wasn't bright from either of them really, because I'm surprised that Wack didn't defend it, but maybe he knew that bump was there and didn't want to go to the inside of the track, but it didn't pay off for him going wide either, unfortunately. So a bit unfortunate there. There's going to be a bit more of a challenge, and looks like Lalu's closer again this time, so let's see what Wack does this time. Is he going to defend it?
He does. He goes very defensive.
Sure, yeah.
But right around the outside, sweeps Jukka-Pekka Lalu. He doesn't have to contend with that awful bump out there. And we once again have 2 Super Venturis on the podium. Actually, judging by what Ed Hunt has just been putting in the chat, I should probably sing that. But anyway. Oh, Fabian Ruder's in the chat. Goodness. Hello, Fabian. Hope you're doing okay. That's a name that I haven't seen in a good few years. But yes, it has been some years, as you say. Josh Down says, that cursed bump. Yes, indeed. I think we've all felt it at some point. And it's there in real life too. You can see the cars sparking as they go into Stowe when they're side by side and they're forced offline a little bit. But anyway, just 4 laps to go in this Grand Prix now. Dennehan has built his lead back up to 10 seconds. It has been absolutely dominant in this stint, just as it was when he was on intermediate tyres earlier on. Here's David Feidock versus Stefan Rohr. Remember, a year ago, we all thought David Feidock was retiring from GPWC, and I was going crazy about the possibility of him setting a fastest lap in his last GPWC Super League race. He ended up coming back simply because he said he didn't really have anything else to do in his evening, so he was like, well, why not go back to GPWC? And it is good to see him back racing for Stacks. He's going to score a couple of points here today, despite a big spin earlier on, and he's going to increase his points tally by passing last year's winner, Stefan Rohr, up the inside there, and through he goes. Nicely done there for the Stacks racing car. So, Ryan, 4 laps to go. Dennehan's looking absolutely unassailable. Who are you watching in the late stages?
Stevens. He's going to be all over the back of Wacken. 1, maybe 2 laps. Vac should be safe after that, more than likely, but really hasn't worked. Maybe picked up some damage from the contact as well. Just never know. I don't feel like he was that much slower than Lalu, and now he's been rocked by him. Bit of a shame there, but was that a sneeze?
No, I was saying, okay, because I have never been so insulted in my life. People are talking about how sometimes when I get excited, it kind of sounds like a show tune number. And apparently Jake Dennehan has said, this Coldplay song is banging. I don't know if he's referring to, he can't be referring to me, right? Because he's driving. He must be listening to an actual Coldplay. Isn't that amazing that he's actually listening to music while driving? You see, I thought they were making fun of my singing there in the chat, saying, you know, equating me to Coldplay, which I have to say, I'm not a big Coldplay fan. My apologies, but there you go. He's actually listening to music while driving. That's amazing. So, Jake Dennehan out in front. Absolutely vibe. You do that too. I can't concentrate. Dude, I struggle when I'm in a disco call and I'm driving, let alone music's playing. How do you hear when to change gear?
Well, you don't have it on that loud. Just
what's the point
ticking
then?
in the background. Because you can just about hear it. Honestly, you're full of controversial opinions as well. You said you don't like Coldplay and you love Silverstone as a track. Like,
yeah.
I just couldn't disagree more with both of them points. I absolutely love Coldplay, and I hate Silverstone.
Fair enough. And there is Luke Maguire going up the inside of Eris Masculi, up into 10th position as we speak. Radar says they listen to Eurobeat and stuff during qualifying. Interesting. I'm surprised you don't end up setting your laps sideways. Ed Hunter says, I was gently mocking you, and incidentally, Jake is messing with the radio. Wow. Maybe it helps Jake to keep his concentration up at the late phase of the race. That is true, because sometimes I find the hardest part of the race is when you're running on your own. I know that sounds a little strange, because when you're with other people, it can get a bit stressful. But when you're on your own, it can be so difficult to keep up the concentration and to keep up the rhythm. And I often find that I make most of my mistakes when I'm completely by myself on the track. So maybe I should just start, you know, playing some tunes in the back. I couldn't do that. Honestly, I couldn't do that.
Used to the run. I mean, it stops me from talking. When I talk, I get distracted. I'm a bit of a talker, and usually ends up in me making a mistake, and then I get annoyed at myself for talking. So I just feel like if I mute up a music...
And there's going to be a move here. Sorry, going away from that conversation. To the outside goes Tom Stevens, and he flies past Tomasz Vok now. I said he was going to be into the top 5 in the late stages of the race. He's now into the top 4, and he is catching Lalu, actually, but we only have 1 lap to go, I'm afraid to say, for Tom Stevens. And he'll be 2 laps to go, sorry. Now, let me take a look at the times. Oh, he's 7/10 faster than Lally, so he is still going to be behind. Possibly going to be on his tail at the end of the race because he was held up a little by Walk on that last lap. But even so, I think it's a little too late, or too little too late for Tom Stevens to get onto the podium today. On one hand, he'll be happy with how the latter part of his race has gone, with quite a recovery drive. But on the other hand, he is going to lose the championship lead today, with Jake Dennehan taking the victory and Tom Stevens in 4th position. And Zolt Hughes, on the other hand, is almost going to lose his car. Oh, goodness me!
Whoa!
Wow, that is quite a sight to see there.
Daniel lost his car.
Daniel Stepkowski is absolutely breakdancing out there, and we're about to see a replay of how that happened. Through Stowe. Lose it. Oh! And there's a...
Oh, man.
Wow!
Official content as well, by the way.
That is one of the biggest accidents that we've seen that year. There was a bump in the curve and it snapped the car off into the sky. That's one of the strangest and one of the biggest accidents we've ever seen in GPWC. We have had that with some of the content before, but I'm surprised he's the only driver who's had that happen to him today. That would have given him such a shock. And unfortunately, that will be his race run and definitely his chance of points gone. And yes, he is now out of the race. When we first saw him tumbling through the grass, it reminded me of Janu Trulli ended up having a big flip here in 2004, I think. And it kind of looked a lot like that, despite the fact that was on the exit of Bridge rather than Stowe. And I mean, it's a good job that this is sim racing rather than real life, because not only would that have surprised him in real life, that would have given him quite a shake-up. But anyway, back to the race.
I mean, thankfully he wasn't in points anyway, but that's just ridiculous. Can't believe we've seen that. Fair enough. Well, good job by Jake. Absolutely nailed the strategy. Got to give a shout out to Owen McGorgy for that one as well, being his engineer for this race. And as well, the SV boys pulled it out the bag again. It feels like they haven't made one bad strategy call this season. They always seem to just be mid to back end of top 10 quali and just get it together in the race.
Second and third in the race, but Jake Dennehan has won once again here. It's going to be a 10-second victory, as we're so accustomed to seeing. Jake Dennehan retakes the lead of the championship. Grankvist and Lalu will be second and third for Super Venturi. I don't know what it is with Finnish genetics, but they do appear to be the most intelligent people out there on the grid this year. They are very, very strong drivers and very strong strategists. I don't know who else they have behind them doing the mathematics and all that behind the scenes, but whoever it is, if there is anyone else in that team on the day, they're doing a very good job. Tom Stevens 4th in the end, so doesn't lose out too much, and he maintains his record of being in the top 4 at every race of the season so far. Tomasz Wok will be 5th. There's a fight going on here, but I'll get onto that in a minute. Then it's Adam Maguire, Pascal Pollens, Mark Schluter, Robin Panzer, and Luke Maguire, the rest of the top 10. Then Masculi, Williams, Fidok, Rohr, and Roos, the rest of the top 15. Here's a replay of Stefan Rohr going at it with David Fidok on the last lap of the race. Fidok got the drive out of the corner. Rohr had a little bit of a twitch, and as they went into the chicane, Fidok ended up finding himself on the dry line, getting the power down quicker. So David Fidok ended up maintaining that 13th position there, holding off last year's winner of this Grand Prix. And there are some well-deserved donuts for Jake Dennehan in the runoff area, down at Copse, weaving the car around, and his winning margin in the end was 10.5 seconds. So once again, an absolutely dominant drive from Jake Dennehan. It's a race that he really had to work for, didn't lead it start to flag. We had Tomasz Wok jumping him in the first pit stage when the weather took a turn for the worse. We had Tom Stevens taking pole position, and actually Dennehan was only 3rd on the grid, remember, behind Daniel Stepkowski. But he's come through and he's won the race once again, and again taken the lead of the championship, Ryan.
wow, what a race. You know, it was crazy. The first 13 laps felt like 50, and it provided for some good entertainment, especially that first sort of like 40 laps. It got a little bit stale to the end. We knew what was going to happen, but you know, if you're Edge and Jake, you're just thinking, okay, left. You want it nice and easy, don't you? You just want to absolutely cruise it, and that's what they did. Unlucky for some people throughout the field with a few incidents that were just unavoidable for some people, mainly thinking of Yun. With that collision with Shepard rejoining, that was pretty bad. And Stepkowski as well, with the little track glitch. It's a bit of a shame, but great race and all. I'll take back what I said about Silverstone. It provided some entertainment for us, and it always does in sim racing. I think it's more a real racing thing for me that I'm not a massive fan of it, especially because not a lot of series use the Grand Prix layout. You always use this international and national, but we use the Grand Prix here, and sim racing's better anyway for entertainment. So on to Hungary.
So the Hungarian Grand Prix will be on the 27th of July, but don't go anywhere yet because we do have some interviews with some of the most notable drivers from that race. And if you are also a team manager listening to this who wants to get in on the action, we'd love to hear from you as well, because we understand that our interviews tend to be a little bit driver heavy, and we know that there are plenty more people behind the scenes who can be just as important in the running of these races. First of all, I would like to bring in, let's go full Super Venturi here because they've driven an amazing race. Let's bring in Jan Grankvist. Jan, how are you?
Hello there. I'm good, thanks. Better than what I expected I'd be.
Absolutely, no surprise there. You actually had a really bad start to this race, dropping right back on the first lap of the race, but it didn't end up mattering, did it? Second place at the end. Just how did you manage to climb all the way up there?
Right, so the start, that was my fault fully. What happened between me and Reuven, and I'm really sorry to Reuven about it. I just had ice blocks for brakes really, and I definitely overshot it, and that was all my fault. But from that, the rain really turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I was telling our team, because everything we started doing with our strategy sort of just paid off by itself. I was sort of sacrificing myself at times to be like a sort of tire tester, because we didn't really have a race engineer to go with. So I was just sat there telling them what the pace was like with the slicks as I went on them, and everything just turned out pretty well for us.
So you went onto the tires to test them, and then it went your way, and you were like, "Oh, I'm suddenly second." That's bizarre.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I sort of knew already that there was a dry line forming. One of us in our group wasn't really even able to see a dry line, so that was a bit unfortunate. But I tested the medium tires, and they were right at the crossover point as I pitted, and it turned out to be the perfect call, because then I got to the double medium strategy as the track dried up, and it was perfect to get P2. I don't think I could have caught up Jake with that, but then the other really surprising factor was Lalu managing to carry his hard tires all the way to the end with that good pace. So yeah, I'm really proud of our team.
Absolutely, and so you should be. That weather though, so unpredictable. Was it really? I mean, did you know it was going to be changeable today at all? And did you do anything to the setup to predict that, or was it all kind of, oh, this is happening now, I suppose?
Honestly, yeah, that someone was right as the race was starting, the countdown for everyone to grid up. Someone just said, "Oh, there's rain on the track," and then we were all like, "What?" And we started panicking. Wait, which tire should we be on? But we figured the slicks would have been best for the start at that point still. But it was a complete surprise for us.
Goodness me. Well, like you said, you ended up making it work. Now, before you go, I just want to ask really quickly. So, who else was in your group? I mean, it was your teammate, but I didn't know Super Venturi were like close with any other teams.
So Adonis are good friends of us, so we sort of share some information between us, and during the race we can communicate a bit of what's going on. So yeah, Zon is Super Venturi. That's the sort of small alliance, if you can call it that.
That's good to know. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for talking to us, Jan, and congratulations on yet another podium, your 4th in a row.
Thank you very much.
So that was Jan Granqvist there, 2nd place yet again. But now we can go to a driver who today actually took his first podium in GPWC. Jan, it's been a long, Jukka-Pekka, it's been a long time coming, but you've done it at last, 3rd place.
Yeah, absolutely amazing race. It was really crazy one with the weather as well. Like time to time we didn't know what to do, but thankfully the choices were right and we are on the podium at the end. Absolutely amazing.
Now, Jan, we always see you running quite long on your tyres. You're one of the best drivers with tyre preservation of all. So I was a little surprised to see you so far up in the kind of changeable conditions where you've got to be swapping out the tyres. But you made it work towards the end, running very long on those slicks. Did you feel that the weather today kind of played into your hands, or was it all a bit, I don't know what's going on, but it's working?
A little bit, yes, because I think the changeable conditions definitely helped in a sense that some other people made front choices, so who were faster than me today. So that gave me advantage compared to them. But even on dry conditions, to be honest, I was before the race I was hoping dry conditions, but when it rained, like you just have to make the most out of it. And this time around, the pace on indoors was really good, and also the decision to go for hards to the end worked really nicely in the end. So strategy was pretty much perfect, I think, in the end, which is really good.
Absolutely wonderful stuff there, Jukka-Pekka. And how does it feel to finally have your first podium in GPWC?
It's really amazing feeling, especially when Jan got 2nd. So double podium for the team. It's even better. It was really close a couple of times earlier this season, but now finally I got it. So just try to keep up the good results to the end now. It's been really amazing season overall. So let's try to finish the second half of the season same way as well.
Truly amazing. Thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka, and we will see you around.
Thank you.
That's okay. So congratulations to Jukka-Pekka Lalo for his first podium in GPWC. Ryan, we don't appear to be joined by Jake Dennehan that much in the interview room. Is there? So I'm struggling to think here, but is there anyone in the interview room who's kind of like connected with Edge in any way, or is it?
Sandeep.
Sorry.
Sandeep and Owen McGargy.
That's true. Would you like to take your pick of who to bring in next?
I don't know if they all want to join or not yet. Like every week, so many people sit in the way for the interview chat. We never know who actually wants an interview because they just end up chatting.
Well, they're in the interview channel, so whoever's in there, we can bring them in. We could always move on to Luke McGuire, Tom Stevens, since he was 4th.
Yeah, we'll go.
Okay, let's go to Tom Stevens here, who was 4th place in that Grand Prix. Tom, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm good, thanks, Caitlin. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you very much. So, Tom, we knew it was going to be close today, especially when qualifying was so tight. You ended up taking pole there, but it didn't quite all go your way. Would you like to talk us through exactly how that happened?
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a bit disappointed today. It's a bit of a shame because this round I was feeling really strong heading into it. Qualifying performed well, was happy with that. But then for some reason it decided to rain when out of nowhere. Well, the radar said it wasn't going to rain. Like literally every website said it wasn't going to. So that was a massive surprise. But that's the good old British weather, eh? So we thought it was going to be a short shower, wasn't going to last long. So when the rain was coming down, we decided to just go with our normal strategy, go back onto the hard tyres. But that was obviously completely the wrong thing to do. So then we had to revert back to Inters, lost the whole pit stop. But I'm really happy with the pace going for the rest of the race. Pretty much, I'm happy I managed to go back up to 4th position. It's a shame I didn't quite manage to catch Lalu in the end, but yeah, I should have pit requested. Yeah, lost a bit of time there, but it's a lot learned from this race, really. A lot of ups and downs, but the good thing is that the pace was there. Congrats to Jake on the win. So yeah, that's it really.
So you say there was a lot learnt from today, but it was quite an unusual race. So what do you think you actually can learn?
Well, I think the first thing to learn is we need to sort of race by the current conditions rather than trying to predict the future ones, especially with how unpredictable it was today. So if we just went on with inters like everyone else instead of trying to be smart, we would have still been up there, even if it was the wrong thing to do. So, but it is what it is, and just thanks to everyone at THR. Amazing prep for this round, felt really good, really strong, and I'm confident we can be right up there again for the next few rounds.
What James Hunt always used to say, you've got to go for what the conditions are telling you rather than what you think it's going to be in the future. But, you know, sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. Whatever the case, congratulations on still being well and truly in contention for the race, and better luck next time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So, Ryan, do you feel like bringing in a 4th person, or are we a little disappointed that Jake's not here?
I'm just disappointed Jake's not here. It's like,
Fair enough.
You just want to get a little insight into what's going through the current now championship leaders and the race winners' head. What's gone into it? I like to pick the brains, but yeah, as well. It's still good 3 interviews with our P234 drivers, so as good as we can get.
Fair enough. Well, thank you all very much for watching today. Thank you as well to Ryan Elliott for once again being my faithful sidekick in the commentary booth. And of course, Szymon Frelik brought us all of the images and the replays and the stream itself, of course. And without our broadcast directors, we wouldn't be able to bring you this action. So thank you very much, Szymon. And make sure you look out for all of the junior category races coming up over the next week or 2 weeks. We're going to be at the Hungaroring next up, which is always another very exciting one. Potential for changeable conditions. We've had races at the Hungaroring that have been wet in the past. But even if there's not, it's definitely going to be strategic and fun. So remember, next Super League race is on the 27th of July, but we will have junior category races in the time being. And whatever the case, we will see you then. Goodbye.